Folks, welcome to the High Council here on World Class Bullshitters. Now, tonight, folks, we are going to be talking about something that people have been speculating on since Trump was president last time. We've been speculating on this since, well, not we personally, but people have been speculating on this shit since before the pandemic, since the world was normal. People have been talking about when will Kathleen Kennedy get fired, retire, or worse. But we won't say that at the first opening of the show. But now we have confirmation because it's finally happening. All the news, all the rumors was bull, or were bull. But now we have the official story. And I'm so excited that I forgot to introduce my co-host. Say hello to Andy Andrew.
What is going on, Jeff? What is going on, High Council chat? Thank you for being here. As always, it is great to see y'all once again this Tuesday night. Yeah, as Jeff said, I won't go so far to say ding dong, the witch is dead, because we're not quite there yet. And I still am going to operate with a healthy helping, we'll say like a Cheesecake Factory size helping of skepticism until, as far as I'm concerned, until she's literally out, she's not out. But I'm cautiously optimistic and hopeful based on what we know right now. So we got a great show for you guys.
I can't wait to talk about it. Script Doctor will be here in just a moment, folks. We wanted to go live to not keep you waiting for much longer, but I can't wait to talk about this because this one's different. As you know, folks, we haven't been running the rumor mill about the Kathleen Kennedy firing. I thought it was absurd.
No, we've just been rolling our eyes to him.
Yeah, I've been making fun of it the whole time. I've been on streams making fun of it, other people's channels, our channel. You guys know that I thought the Kathleen Kennedy rumors were all bullshit and they weren't world class. But when Variety and the Hollywood Reporter and a lot of other places that don't really report on movie news unless it's the real deal are reporting on it and everybody's talking about it, well, that is why you'll hear my opinions in a few moments. But folks, we have beyond Kathleen Kennedy, but we're going to be talking about if you can fix it, is it too late, what's next, who's next. These are the topics you guys want. This has been blowing up on social media. I know our clips are going to go viral, and I know you guys love this stuff. So hit that thumbs up button to let YouTube know that you enjoy this content. Hell, do it for us. Does it make us feel good? A little bit. We feel good about, being around in general, but that thumbs up does help us in the algorithm. It helps shoot our videos up, and we're world class. You're world class, and well, we all enjoy a little bit of growth. But folks, we got the word of the day first. All the way from Shrebbles08. Our word of the day is somewhere. Where is it? Right here. The word of the day is twant. No country for old twant. Star Wars, the rise of Rey's twant. Oh, God. Twant Horizon, how Stella got her twant back.
Dude, where's my twant?
Dude, oh, God, okay, let's see. The good, the bad, the twant.
That's good. American twant story.
Twant girls are easy.
Twant Hotel.
Twantsylvania 65000.
That's good. I like that. Back to the twant.
I just watched Back to the Future for the first time in like a year and a half. God, there's a reason why it's my favorite movie, or one of them. But seeing Kathleen Kennedy's name on it always makes me roll my eyes just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's fair. Twant Park.
Shout out to John Thomas, who's heading out to sleep early. Folks, if you watch this show in the future, say hello. We got Sisterhood of the Traveling Twants, How to Lose a Twant in 10 Days.
That one might be my winner so far. That one might be my winner.
Let's just give it to Enrique. Enrique has been a member of the channel for forever. He's a real-life friend. He's coming to visit. Like, Enrique, you win this twant title. How to Lose a Twant in 10 Days.
500 Days of Twant.
God, you, me, and Twant. No, that doesn't work. Twant pre. Let's see. Enter the Twant.
Fair enough. The Twant Reloaded.
It's funny. You thought I was going The Matrix. I was watching Enter the Dragon this morning.
Oh, shoot. Oh, okay. Respect.
With Twant Lee.
Yeah. Nice.
Dude, Bruce Lee is still cool. Like 50.
Oh,
50,
hell yeah.
Over 50 years later. Jesus. I understand that movie came out well before I was born, but to be talking about it as it's a 52-year-old movie, like I remember talking about it like, oh yeah, 20 years ago when Enter the Dragon came out. And now it's like, oh, Fuck, time
Dude,
goes really fast.
I love me some Bruce Lee movies. I love me some Jet Li movies. Like that's my jam.
I like Jet Li a lot, actually. But if I'm going to put like all martial artists, I do put Bruce Lee at the top because it's respect, it's legend. He really
Oh,
is
of
that
course.
good. I really like Jackie Chan movies, though. I think Jackie Chan is just like Bruce Lee has the status and the legendary whatever, but Jackie Chan was better. So
I think as just like yes, I agree. Bruce Lee has that kind of legend. He almost has this mythical air about him. There's something that there's an energy he radiates when he's on screen. Jet Li has this like just precision to everything that he does, and it's always just like extra layers of cool on top of layers of cool. Jackie Chan, I think, just has an unparalleled level to his performance. That when he's able to just do stuff on the fly and utilize everything around him to be a tool at his disposal, there's nobody like him.
Lester says it perfectly. Lester, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being a member, and thank you for this comment. I haven't been part of the Bruce Lee world for as long as I was. There's a timelessness about what he left us.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Absolutely.
the movie about him is pretty good. Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Yeah.
Now, folks, if this is your first time catching us live, what the hell have you been doing for all this time? But we're going to talk about Kathleen Kennedy in a moment. The way our shows always work are introduction, check in with the audience, word game, and then it's time to jump into the show. And we'll go as long as we need for you guys to get everything you want to say out there. But our friend Sam Owen, thank you, Sam, says, watching the show live tonight, and it feels so good, Sam. It's great because you're here, too. I'm always on the replay Wednesdays and Fridays. Script, you're the GOAT of industry insiders. I will reread that when Script Doctor gets here. But, Sam, thank you for checking us out every Wednesday and Friday. Folks, if you're looking for some more world-class content, remember, we go live on Tuesdays at 9 and Thursdays at 8:30. And because we go live a little late, you might catch us on the replay. But catch the replays. The Thursday show is a lot of fun. The Tuesday show is very insightful, and well, it's all world class. But thank you, Sam. Appreciate the message, and like I said, I'll relay that to Script. Shrubbles08 says, I need a slap nuts and a dookie, please. The one thing Kathleen Kennedy could never be. The cream of the crop. Ooh, yeah. Well, I apologize for my terrible macho man. It's been a long day here. It's been a good week. Like, I can't tell you just yet. Join me on Thursday to hear what's going on. But it's been a good week. It's been a big week, and I've been taking care of some behind-the-scenes stuff. So haven't been getting as much sleep, but I don't care. It's been a great time. You can sleep when you're dead. But let's give Shrubbles08 the buttons he requested. First off, here is no one's favorite smell.
What's that smell?
His delivery of that line, man.
The fact that like Vince McMahon was off camera making shit jokes for Hulk Hogan to say in a movie, after you find out what Vince McMahon's actually done in the modern age, really like just colors everything he's done in a weird light.
All a little different now. Yeah.
Well, I've never been Vince's biggest supporter. I've never been his biggest detractor, but No Holds Barred, it's a quality piece of filmmaking. Here's your button.
Did you see that guy accidentally hit that moose with his car?
No.
Holy shit. Jamie, pull that video up.
It's Mr. Flatnut to you.
Down goes Beetlejuice. Remember that time Beetlejuice almost got killed by the Iron Sheik?
Maybe? Like, we're talking this Beetlejuice, right?
He was talking. Oh, you know what? We might be thinking different Beetlejuice. Now that I'm thinking of it.
I was about to say, like, I don't remember the Sheik in the WCW, but I'm also not a WCW guy.
Yeah,
So-
no, we're thinking different Beetlejuice. But yeah, there is a legendary in my mind, and one of my other wrestling fans, like in kind of like the lexicon of wrestling for us. There's a moment where Iron Sheik looks like he's about to rip Beetlejuice's head off. And it's only by the grace of God that he doesn't. And he rips into him so bad. It's great.
Sheiky Baby was a bad dude. He would break your back and make you humble.
He would make
And
you
he
humble.
could-
He'd put you in the camel clutch.
And he did not like Hulk Hogan.
Nope. Hulk Hogan was the jabroni. One day Hulk Hogan may be legend like him.
You know what's messed up? And folks, I promise we're starting to talk about Kathleen Kennedy now. All of the shit that the Iron Sheik said about Hulk Hogan was true. All of the shit that Bobby the Brain Heenan said about Hulk Hogan was true. I agree with Nolan, but Hulk Hogan turned out to be an a-hole.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised how big of an a-hole he is. A little disappointed too, because I always liked Hulk Hogan as a kid.
I think a lot.
Jessica, welcome in to catch us live. We're happy to have you all here tonight, folks. Now, this is a historic date. I was going to go live this morning when I woke up and saw the news. I was like, oh man, 5 hours ago, Kathleen Kennedy she said she's stepping down. She's going to retire. Okay. Well, I thought, let me wait a little bit. Let me make the video. Let's do this the right way. Because the last thing I want to do is jump in half-cocked. But let's start talking about Kathleen Kennedy. So let's take it back to the beginning. In the Stone Age, Kathleen Kennedy was born, but you don't care about that. What you do care about is in 2012, Kathleen Kennedy became the president of Lucasfilm when George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney for over $4 billion. And what follows is the stuff of legend. It is historically disappointing. It's culturally relevant, even though the films are irrelevant. The Disney Star Wars saga is an interesting masterclass in failure. And then, add on to that, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and it doesn't take Steiner math to show you that the numbers do not add up. They do lie, and they don't spell anything but disaster for Kathleen Kennedy's legacy. Because, Andrew, over the course of her 10-plus year, let's just call it 11-year reign of terror over Lucasfilm, 0 quality products with a social cultural relevance that could last more than a year have existed.
No, I mean, their most relevant thing in terms of having something resembling a positive impact was The Mandalorian for its first 2 seasons. And then people were just as quickly over it. Like it was a flash in the pan. Like it was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. It has its flaws, but I enjoyed the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. But it was a flash in the pan. It does not have the staying power of anything from the Lucas era.
No, it really, The Mandalorian starts out really strong. I was hooked the first episode. That first season was really solid because it didn't have lightsabers and Jedi and all this other crap in the beginning. It started out with, him on that ship freezing the guy. It was kind of cool and different. Mm-hmm. But the management, the powers that be, this chick ruined it because the show, you have a couple characters. Like, I liked Mandalorian, Cara Dune, Carl Weathers, Queel, and Grogu. Those 5 characters were cool, and they were all unique, they were all new, and they all fit into their own little pocket universe that was on the periphery of the end of the Empire. Return of the Jedi had happened a couple of years before. I was on board, but the powers that be had to screw it up by making it a backdoor pilot for literally everything.
Yeah.
Oh, Mandalorian's not enough? Here's Ahsoka.
They couldn't just let it be its own thing.
It kept being added on to, and it got to the point where it wasn't even a show about him. Much like Star Wars isn't a franchise about its characters. It is about what you can do to get people's attention as quickly as possible. Everybody loved Andor, but are you still talking about it? No.
And when we say everybody loved Andor, that's just talking about the 16 people that watched it.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's a great percentage of your viewership in terms of reception, but that's not great viewership in general. Nobody cared at that point. The premise wasn't interesting enough to people who were Star Wars fans. And a lot of Star Wars fans at that point had just kind of tapped out. We were in the apathy phase, right? Where it's like, we can't even bring ourselves to hate watch this stuff. It's just like, it's not even worth it. Like, it's not even worth making videos on in a lot of cases for a lot of people.
No, hate watching is funny when the stuff has some kind of flaw. Like
when it's so absurd that it's just like you can't help but laugh. Like you don't even have to force it. Like watching Ahsoka or the Acolyte even Book of Boba Fett was just so bad. Like when it's just like comedically awful, but then when something just kind of sucks or is boring, it's like it's not really worth my time, and I'm not going to force myself to laugh at something that's just kind of like bleh on the screen.
Agreed. And like for me, The Room has some objective failures, but it's not aware of those failures. So it's funny because of it.
Yeah.
Same thing with a movie like Samurai Cop. It has so many shortcomings. You can
God.
tell when the guy has a wig on, when it doesn't. That kind of stuff is inherently funny. What's not funny is watching a show titled The Mandalorian, and for 40 minutes of a 42-minute episode, you follow some dude and some chick that looks like a dude on Coruscant talking about whatever. Like,
Dude.
all I remember is how crappy it was and that I hated watching that. That's not a good sign.
That was
Added
such
to
a
the fact that
frustrating episode to watch.
Dude, add to the fact that the management behind the scenes is so poorly run. There are years gaps. It has been over 2 years since the last season of The Mandalorian, correct? Like, I was in California watching that show.
Yeah, no, that sounds
We're back
right.
into the Ohio phase. This company could put out a trilogy, it feels like over a weekend, but in reality it was just a couple of years. But then they can stretch everything else out and make it feel like an eternity to get anything new. And that was the formula to kill it. That was the formula that ruined it. It was, hey, let's give you something you don't like. Here's something you kind of like, but you're gonna forget about it by the time something follows up. And I think that has to do for two things one thing besides the bad management. It's Disney, because they're their own competition. Yeah. So it's like Star Wars can't outperform Marvel. It can't, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is your company like, okay, I got like 5 kids, I got to treat them all right. Okay, so you get this much time and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. That's what this boils down to, is a big company has too much IP and now nobody gives a shit.
Well, and there's a balance there, because we talk about things like superhero fatigue or Star Wars fatigue, which I believe are false terms. I don't believe they're a thing. I think they're just a matter of having dog shit fatigue and not good content. But there's something you need to do when you have, some sort of universe or collection of things that you're releasing. You need to tailor how you're utilizing hype and how you're utilizing pacing of your releases, right? So you got to give people enough to want more of the thing that you just gave them. So that first you have to give them something that they want more of, right? But then you have to layer in bits of things that maintain that energy and maintain that hype. Like Star Wars, for the longest time, how many years was it in between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace?
16 years.
Yeah, not far off from 20 years, right? But we did have other Star Wars content that, at least for the hardcore Star Wars fans, that kept them energized, that kept them hyped and looking forward to the day when eventually they got another film, right?
Because
and then
George Lucas knew how to keep everything special.
He did. And when he announced Phantom Menace, people lost their ever-loving skulls, right? People had, varying receptions to the movie itself, but that's neither here nor there. What he did was he made sure that there were other things released in between that time, during that 16-year period. We had books, we had comics, we had video games, we had great merch.
The movies came back out in 1995 with the Faces box set. And then this is the one footnote that Star Wars fans like to forget because they don't like it. But the special edition is actually a really important moment because it brought Star Wars back to the mainstream. Because I know a lot of us, including me, because it
introduced a lot of people of our generation to that original trilogy.
Yeah. And for all the changes that suck and for all the people that want the originals, and you deserve them, you got to give that one credit because it tied everything together and it kept it relevant. And also, too, they used to know how to put out Shadows of the Empire. It's all the hype of a movie without the movie. So you got a book, a soundtrack, a video game, a toy line, a comic book, everything. Hell, even after, between the prequels, you would get like these releases from Lucasfilm and Hasbro, and it'd be like, we're putting out the DVD box set this year, but you're getting 2 toy lines. You're getting this vintage style line and the classic box with higher articulation. Star Wars fans couldn't get them quick enough. And then here's the classic style stuff with less articulation, but it looks good. Like everything was marketed as an event, because it goes back to my point a minute ago. Disney has so many IPs that each one's just run enough to get by. But when your guy that creates it is in charge to a degree, there's more care put into it. Like Lucasfilm, I know people are going to say it's 3, but I'm going to say it's a 2-property company, Indiana Jones and Star Wars being the big one. Like, yeah, Willow, yeah, there's Full Throttle, there's some of the LucasArts games like Monkey Island. I'm not acting like those aren't important, but we're talking about
the flagship franchises that carry. Yeah.
But it just isn't that anymore. It used to be so exciting. And, I always bring up the personal stuff, but as a kid, you would get a figure or a book or just rent the movies. And it was like, oh crap, here we go. I remember the first time I saw Return of the Jedi, because I know it's not like waiting 3 years like a lot of people did, but I didn't know there were 3 Star Wars movies at first. So I watched the first one probably like 50 times. Like seriously, that's not an exaggeration. I watched that movie for a long time, and I didn't realize there was a second one until I started getting the toys of like Luke Skywalker in a black costume and Luke Skywalker in a gray shirt. And they're like, what is this? And I guess, back in the day you would get Batman in green, Batman in silver. I just thought they were different, like made up costumes. And then I saw
Batman in chrome armor.
You laugh. I got a George Clooney Batman in chrome armor sitting on the shelf.
No, I'm not even referring to the Clooney one. I know which one you're talking about. Like they did this, like I think they called it like a Dark Knight's like set, but like there were different variants and they were different.
Legends of the Dark Knight.
That's what it was. Yeah, different colored chrome releases. There was a silver one where he had the cape and this big old 2-handed sword. It also was made to fit inside a silver Batmobile that shot a missile out the front. I had both of them bitches. There was also a blue chrome one that he had like a jetpack glider thing. Like I had both of those. Those were cool as hell.
Don't you love when you can geek out about stuff? Like, let's take it a second back. Can you actually geek out over anything from Lucasfilm from the last decade?
No.
Besides the speculation before The Force Awakens came out?
Right. Like, they've released a handful of Black Series figures that are really cool. And I have them, and I'm glad I have them. But, like, super geeking out about them? Not really. No. Like, I love my signed Cara Dune figure. Like, that's cool as hell. I treasure that. I have a chrome box Black Series Boba Fett, which is cool, but I'm not geeking out about that. To your point, like, the energy that I would have talking with you about the freaking flip head Power Rangers or the Batman figures that we were just discussing, those eclipse anything that has come out of Lucasfilm in terms of toys, even their cool ones, and there have been some cool ones, it eclipses those by orders of magnitude.
And that really pisses me off too. Collector side note, folks. This is how it went down. When Disney took over the license from Hasbro, they jacked up the price.
Mm-hmm.
They, in return, Hasbro changed the quality of the figures and really flooded the market with these 5 POA 3 3/4 inch figures. Now, they didn't sell them as vintage style at the time. All of a sudden, they just put out a new Star Wars line and they sucked. And they were really pushing them out hard. And you got figures that looked like this. And it was, an okay figure, but it's 5 points of articulation. Nobody really gave a crap. As a collector, I got really mad because just as recent as like 2008, they were pumping out really good stuff. And I'm talking like you could go into a store and get the clone ship, or you could get the Millennium Falcon, or you could get box sets, and the demand was there. Ever since Disney took over, it has changed because they have wanted to make it more. They wanted to milk us, the old school fans, for more money. So they made higher end licenses get Luke and Han and Leia and Hot Toys and all this shit. There's a discrepancy, folks. You might get all these one Reva figure or all the Rose Tico variants, but you never got that shit from Hot Toys. You never got that on the high end because the high end people are the most diehard people, and they're the ones that will keep this alive.
We're the ones willing to shell out a little bit of money for a cool figure of a character we actually like.
Oh yeah. I recant my comment a minute ago. I at first thought Krennic was cool enough to get his action figure. Then I watched Rogue One again, and while Ben Mendelsohn's great, I really don't want to own anything from that movie. So he's just somewhere in the box. But yeah, I did say Rose Tico. What you guys don't realize is that years ago, you all you fine people mailed me dozens and dozens of them. So in my other location, at my mom's house, I got literal cases of Rose Ticos.
It's funny that you mentioned Rogue One because I was actually just prior to the show watching, because I was so busy today with work. I didn't get the chance to check it out initially. I was watching your video that you dropped regarding KK. And
thank you.
I'd completely forgotten that like Gareth Edwards was initially going to be directing, what was it, Solo?
Rogue One.
Rogue One. It was Rogue One. Yeah. And I was like, this absolute beesh. Like, Gareth Edwards has a masterful eye and ear when it comes to cinematography and audio direction for his films that he works on. Like, I'm actually excited. I'm kind of neutral on like what the potential story is for the upcoming Jurassic World Rebirth, but the fact that he's directing leaves me with some hope because he's a really damn good director. And I'm excited to see like what he does with it, you know, audio wise and video. But it was funny to me that was something that I had forgotten, and you reminded me through that video because he directed the 2014 Godzilla film as well, which had incredible sound design, like incredible sound design and cinematography.
I like that movie. I know
that
most
scene
people
where they're
dump on
dropping into the city from the sky drop, and you've got them floating down with the kaiju there. It was just, oh man, that scene in theaters was just one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced. Barry!
Now, folks, speaking of experiences, tell me what the worst what is the worst Kathleen Kennedy product that you've experienced in your life? I'm reading the chat, as you can tell, guys. So I want to know what you guys think, because we're talking about the Acolyte, or people in the chat are talking about the Acolyte. Remember, all of these bad projects, bad things actors have said all fall under this lady's power. But for some reason, Hollywood doesn't, well, we know the real reason, but for some reason they just kind of, it's the fans, it's the fans, it's the fans, it's the fans.
Of course.
Where's your money?
It's easier to look out a window than in the mirror.
Yeah. And they like that, though. They don't realize that the ground is this close to their face before it's too late. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where this is. I can't decide what I hate more, how Star Wars was treated or how Indiana Jones was treated. Because movies are important. They're the language that ties everybody together. You know, you might have a friend or you might know someone or meet somebody that doesn't speak English. They might speak French or Croatian, but they've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. They know all that. You become friends because you have that shared language of Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. It's something that gets you excited. It's also something good. That's where I was watching Enter the Dragon today, and I thought to myself, man, the exposition and the build-up to this movie is really long compared to today's standards. But I thought to myself, but this is like a high-action movie by 1970s standards. And I keep thinking to myself, they evolved the style, film style evolved, where you start out with something you start out the experimental stuff because it's a new medium. Then you start telling your dramas and you get into these more serious, big period, whatever.
Yeah.
But what's considered a fun, hot action movie is a little different. It's a little longer, but I like that because it tells you a full story and gives you the action. I feel like today's entertainment doesn't follow let's give you a full experience. Let's just sell you a bunch of CGI cutscenes and hopefully you go home and buy the action figure in the popcorn bucket. But audiences are too smart for that. Also, too, we've been conditioned to expect more, and we've been spoiled. There were you could argue the 70s, but I would argue the 80s and 90s. We were so spoiled with quality entertainment in so many different mediums, from comics to video games, movies, TV shows, music. Like, it was just that window of time was great. Mm-hmm. And a lot of today is just copying what used to come before it. And that's, we bring it all back to Star Wars.
And it's an inferior copy as well. It's a simulacrum, right? It's just this soulless replication that might resemble the thing it's trying to be and desperately wants to be, but it's lacking everything that actually makes it that thing.
Yeah. And it has not been the thing at Lucasfilm for quite a while. I mean, the fact that they're trying to just re-release, the thing is, these movies are rehashes, and I could sit and be that guy I was 5 years ago. Hey, folks, remember this scene in Return of the Jedi? It's in the new movie. Hey, remember this scene? It's from that. I'm tired of that. You guys are tired of that. And this lady's to blame. She took something we all liked and ruined it. But you know what? Instead of getting angry, I've decided to laugh at it. And look, Disney Star Wars brought you all here. We keep on growing. We're doing books. We're doing all these things. Hell, Kathleen Kennedy's in Stealing Solo too. I got to draw her. And her, Bob Iger, and J.J. Abrams are in a page. And then there's a page where she yells at Luke Skywalker, which leads to his mental state that he's in where he would kidnap people. So I made fun of this lady. That's how I take out my anger on Disney Star Wars. I make comics. I make fun of it. So anybody that clips this and goes, listen to these angry guys on the internet, we're not really angry. I'm speaking for you. We're disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, we're disappointed as shit.
Kathleen Kennedy is a perfect example of how you can be someone who is steeped in and surrounded by something, swimming in it for such a large portion of your life, and you still not actually have a freaking clue about understanding what that thing actually is. She was surrounded by Star Wars. She was surrounded by Indiana Jones. She has no idea what these things are. She might at best understand like one or two little visual things, and that's it. She doesn't understand the heart of these properties or these characters.
I think part of Kathleen Kennedy not understanding, and I think this is to do maybe Disney, maybe this is intentional, and I don't want to get, I'm not trying to get political here. I'm trying to make this as broad as possible, but there's like a religious element under George Lucas. It's not saying that it's, Christian or Jewish or Muslim or any of these like messages, but Star Wars used to have this like theme of religion and faith, the Force, they called it an ancient religion in the first movie. When you try to sell movies to China, what do? Take out the religion. Now, Indiana Jones needs the religion. Indiana Jones doesn't work when he's going after generic artifacts as much. Like, look, it's exposition and it's introduction of the character in the, was it Chechapoyan Temple and Raiders of the Lost Ark? But Indiana Jones always goes for some sort of religious element.
And in my opinion, one of the reasons why Temple of Doom is, for me, the weakest of the three films is because it doesn't nail that energy the same way that Raiders and Last Crusade does. It doesn't land the same way for me. Now, that people may disagree with that, and that's fine. But that's, for me, if we're going to talk like the religious aspect of it, that's one of the reasons why I don't gravitate onto Temple as much.
Well, remember, it's just a different religion.
Yeah.
It's Hinduism, which works for me because Script Doctor might take this differently, but like, let's say I wrote Temple of Doom. The way I would have written Temple of Doom is I would have gotten Indiana Jones. Like, I knew Indiana Jones was going from here to here, and I kind of would have filled it in that way. And so, obviously, if you're going to go to India, you got to do, religion there is very interesting because you got all the gods and all these different things. And also, too, you're watching Indiana Jones like fight the occult and the darkness in that movie, which I argue Raiders is the darkest one. It's the only movie where Indiana Jones shoots people in the face. Yeah. Like, our hero does more gnarly things in that film. Like, and that's fine. I'm not complaining. I don't think the movie's harsh or needs to be rated R. But like, that's the only one where he goes up to that Muslim dude in the truck and just shoots him in the head. The one that the truck flips over, or the blood squibs are more violent. Like, I always consider Raiders of the Dark. It has a dark ending. It doesn't have a happy ending. It's got a bureaucratic fools and all that shit. But the whole point I was trying to get at is Indiana Jones works best when it's religion based. Star Wars works best when there's a
It didn't work when you went into that alien part of it.
No, like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is garbage.
Yeah.
Dial of Destiny is garbage too. And it's more like, oh, well, what's better? What's worse? It's like, would you rather lose your right or your left arm?
Right.
Don't
it's
want
like,
either.
I'd rather just not watch either. Can we do that? And just all agree that there are 3 Indiana Jones films and then the Young Indiana Jones series. Can we do that?
Yeah. And that all boils down to Kathleen Kennedy. Like, she's in charge, and she's like, oh, here we go. We have two properties, Star Wars and Indiana Jones. And after you ruin Star Wars, and why don't people, and this is just a tangent, I apologize, but why do people not pay attention to the fact that for her movies to make any money, they had to spend through the nose? Like, go look it up. It's between $400 and $600 million for The Force Awakens, but nobody reports on that as the most expensive movie ever made.
No,
It
they
really
just
is.
hone in on the $2 billion at the box office,
Yeah.
which Disney did not receive all of.
And that's the part that people have always been making excuses for this lady, but the numbers don't lie. They have spelled disaster for a long time. And I've always wondered, how did it get so bad when she is a money person? She's the numbers person. If you look her up historically, she's a producer, not a creative director. And so it's interesting to hear all these great Kathleen Kennedy stories. Like, her most famous story before she took over Star Wars was they all got stuck on an island making Jurassic Park, and she like figured out the logistics of helicopters and how to film and all this shit. Like, that's her crowning achievement.
Which makes her good at that thing.
Yes.
But she should be in no way, shape, or form within like intercontinental ballistic missile range of creative.
And I just want to address this to everybody out there. Is she actually leaving? I wish none of you guys got shell shocked from all the garbage rumors for 5 years. I thought they were bullshit. We've told you the whole time. But when it's the Hollywood Reporter and it's Variety and it's all of these places, just Google Kathleen Kennedy. This isn't like we got this covered, or
we got
trust
that's
me,
a
bro.
name I have not heard in a long time.
I think it's garbage. Those rumors really ruined a lot of stuff, but a lot of places are reporting on this. And you might not like a website like IGN, but it costs $50,000 to advertise on $25,000 to advertise on their website. And I understand that you can shill out and do whatever, but you may not like their opinions, but they tend to not make a bunch of fake stories. Like the websites I'm quoting, you may not like any of the political opinions of the writers, but that's an irrelevant topic. I would rather read something from somewhere that I go, well, they usually tell the truth, than I like what they're telling me, but I don't think it's real. Because a lot of these websites and these rumors have been wish fulfillment for 5 years. And that's why it always pissed me off, because
If it sounds too good to be true, you should treat it with the level of skepticism that suggests that it is.
That was the thing that the Phantom Menace was different, is like it was more, at least on our end, it was more fact-based. It was, hey, look at these numbers. Hey, look at this data. Hey, look at this box office, merchandise, whatever. It's when it got into the rumor and everybody had some kind of scoop on Kathleen Kennedy that a lot of shit fell apart.
Yeah.
And so the audience doesn't believe this stuff. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, I don't give a shit.
You can only
Star
fool
Wars is
people
ruined.
so many times in a row.
Yeah. And the property's dead. The company's screwed. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, we're not going to fix it anytime soon. But this is the one where I'm not going to go, oh, we'll see. Listen to the wording too. It's like her saying she's stepping down at the end of the year. Like, she's not fired. She was never going to get booted out by Bob Iger. Like, all those battles that everybody's
She either
been
stepped
talking
down or her
about,
contract just wasn't renewed.
yeah. It happens to pro wrestlers all the time. And there wasn't all this drama. This one lady, Sonya Deville, just was let go, right? Her contract wasn't renewed. She was in contract negotiations, and then all of a sudden they say, we're not renewing your contract.
Yeah. And that happens all the time in professional wrestling.
And
All the
there was no drama. Triple H didn't cheat on Stephanie with her because she's a lesbian. Like, none of this shit happened. And that's the thing that with Kathleen Kennedy, that so many people were like, well, I don't know if this is true. How many rumors did you hear? How many times did you hear that people are fighting for the soul of Lucasfilm? I didn't believe any of that shit, because none of it ever happened. Like, it was all a bunch of garbage to keep talking about Kathleen Kennedy getting fired, and she never got fired. Here we are, it's 2019, and she's now stepping down. Now, let's talk about someone that's stepping up. Say hello to the script doctor. What is up, Script?
Hey, guys. Apologize for being late, but the meeting I was in ran long. It dealt with basically not renewing somebody's contract, which guess what? In the entertainment industry, that's not a termination. It's just business. Because again, you don't have to pay out anything when you don't renew a contract, because the contract is then fulfilled. But with this news of Kathleen Kennedy, I'll believe it when I see it. And the one thing that'll make me believe it more is if they start talking about who, like legitimately start talking about who's going to take over, because right now it's all rumors of Dave Filoni, but he's not taking, I don't believe he's taking over. If he does, that's the biggest blunder ever. You cannot have Kathleen Kennedy, the first woman of her ilk, running that studio, be succeeded by a guy like Dave Filoni.
I don't think Dave Filoni was ever going to replace Kathleen Kennedy. It's one of those situations where everybody hated what she did. People remembered what they liked from him, and they go, well, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've had Lucasfilm employees on the channel that have told you what Dave Filoni's actually like. But because it's not Kathleen Kennedy, people really wanted to gravitate. Oh, man, Dave Filoni's our savior. He was never going to save Star Wars. In script, I'm going to offer a counterpoint to you is I do think this is legit because of where it's being reported, how it's being reported. If you pay attention to leaving at the end of the year, it's not really like some controversial hot take. And also, too, they obviously know more than we do. There is no value. Here's the thing. This, to me, this is just my take because I don't want to come off as a dick, but like for everybody that wants to talk about who like successes Kathleen Kennedy, it doesn't matter.
No, because it's going to be like a good 2 or 3 years before we see any level of impact from her leaving anyway.
It doesn't matter because there's no future where this all of a sudden there's a switch that is flipped and Star Wars is back.
Oh, hell no.
It's been a decade. There is a decade worth of people, not just kids, but people that were kids back then that don't like this shit.
A generation.
A generation. And let's even take like 2 generations of people that think Star Wars is lame because you had Jar Jar Binks in 1999. And then I've always held my tongue about certain things, but like the sequels suck ass, but the prequels are slightly better. And they're better, but they're not like masterpieces. Just because they're better by comparison doesn't make them great. Like Episode 2 is not a great movie, and it never has been. And it's not gonna. I'm not gonna look at Rose Tico.
It was my least favorite Star Wars film until I saw the sequels.
Mine too. And I still say, like, if you take the sequels out and all of them, I'd say Episode 2 is the shittiest one. And then you get the sequel. Well, then you get the sequels in Solo. Solo's different. But my point I was trying to make before I got riled up, because I care about this, is I don't think anyone being announced to replace Kathleen Kennedy is a news story that changes Star Wars or fixes anything for a broken property that literally can't be redeemed because everybody that works on it doesn't understand it. It's not this sprawling epic about everybody in a goddamn universe. It's a really cool universe about one family. And I know that sucks to hear, but the Skywalker saga is just Star Wars. And you can't put Rey in it and say she's a family member. That's this lady's problem. You can't just randomly pick people and throw them in there. It really is the story of Luke Skywalker and him becoming a Jedi, and then on the backside of it, how his dad fell. And that's the end of Star Wars. There's no more story to tell on the grand scale that gets $1 billion in the box office, because all it was under this lady was remember this, remember that, put a chick in it, make it gay. So,
yeah, it's basically like going to a high school reunion and talking about those great years. Like that's how Kathleen Kennedy ran this thing. And to your point, the virus has spread to every aspect of Disney Lucasfilm. It's there. It's not going away. The most likely candidate that's going to replace her is Carrie Beck. Why? She's not been in the news with regards to what she's doing, but she's been a producer on every single Disney Plus series. And Disney Plus is the new de facto home of Star Wars. It's not the theater anymore. It's Disney Plus. The other aspect you have to also remember is that Bob Iger's not going anywhere anytime soon, really. You're never going to have a change of regime at Disney Lucasfilm so long as Bob Iger's at the top. It's always a top down. The only time a studio goes under an overhaul, whether it's a good or bad thing, is when there's a new studio head. Case in point, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Under Kevin Tsujihara, under Walter Hamada, under Ann Sarnoff, they all changed things and they all went nuts and it all failed terribly. Zaslav comes in. He's left holding the bag and he's like, well, we got to kind of fire sale this stuff out. And he did so. And the stuff that he was able to pull in, like Barbie and Beetlejuice and Wonka, did really well. Like we got to see him. And also the attitude at that studio changed drastically. Like now his DEI department is basically kind of being shuttered. Well, it was shuttered almost the first day he got in there. They just didn't know it. And now he's pushing a little bit harder on that, where none of those people are having their contracts renewed because they're actually ending this year. So that department is going to be like, we're still in the process of looking for replacements that can best fit this role. And that position is going to be open almost indefinitely.
Yeah, like just in perpetuity.
Yes. And the other part too is like, listen, this is not the first time that Star Wars has gone dormant, so to speak. I mean, between 1986 and 1996, you pretty much didn't have anything really in the ether of Star Wars in comparison to when it launched, and also in comparison to when it relaunched with the prequel trilogy. Like it always has those docile times because Star Wars is a niche franchise. Yeah, it has its peaks where it becomes the most popular thing talked about throughout the world. But once it becomes part of culture, it then finds its home and place and its level. And Disney has been forced to oversaturate Star Wars to the point where it's no longer valuable as much as it used to be. And that comes part and parcel with, sadly, George Lucas deciding to give the position to Kathleen Kennedy instead of Rick McCallum, who was the producer that was at Lucasfilm since the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, all the way through to the end of the prequel trilogy and to the Clone Wars cartoon. He was there. He was George's yes man, but he knew how to run the business. And he knew how to keep things within line. And the biggest red flag, and I'm hoping one day I'll find the answer to this, is why did he leave Lucasfilm? And I think he left because he realized that George was going to sell. And I think he disagreed with that, which would be the first time he said no to George ever. Because he was not known for doing that. And now he's in Europe somewhere. He's starting his own little smaller production company. He's doing really, really well over there. And Kathleen Kennedy, who is probably one of the best problem-solving producers you'd have ever heard of in Hollywood prior to her taking over Disney Lucasfilm. And she just doesn't know how to find the magic. Like,
well, Jeff and I talked about that just moments ago.
Okay,
Jeff,
great. Yeah.
Jeff brought up her actual kind of pulling a rabbit out of the hat moment with on Jurassic Park.
Oh,
right?
When they stopped on the island.
Yeah. Like, and that is a credit to her ability in that field, right? And then I followed that up with, yes, absolutely. That is her skill set. That's where she belongs. Not within intercontinental like ballistic missile range of creative. Like, keep her away from creative. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Agreed.
The fact of the matter is that no, she can't pick the creative idea, but if you present her with the creative idea that's already going into production, she knows how to get everything that thing needs. And
she knows how to get the money for it, right?
Well, it's not just the money. She knows how to get the best rate because, listen, like I have other friends, even here on YouTube, that have said, it's so easy to work for Steven Spielberg because all you have to do is call anyone, says, I'm doing a Steven Spielberg movie. It's like, well, that might get you in the door. But you also have to remember those people that you're trying to get permits for, if they know it's a Steven Spielberg movie, they're going to charge you through the nose.
Yeah.
So you have to negotiate the best price for that. It's not easy. Like, yeah, we'll shut down Washington Bridge.
Like that might at best, just like you said, get you in the door and get you the conversation. But that doesn't mean you're going to automatically just get the best rate.
Well, let's say that Steven Spielberg wants to shoot on the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And they only have a $2 million budget for that permit and for the day that shoot. Well, Kathleen Kennedy can call up and get the people to negotiate that, but they're not going to ask. They're not going to say it's going to cost them $2 million. They're just going to say it's cost them 10. But Kathleen Kennedy is the type of person that's like, I know how to make them agree to 2.
Right.
And that takes skill. It's not easy at all. Like, it's easy to say, oh yeah, they'll answer my phone call. But after that, it's all her.
Yeah, no, that takes understanding how to operate within that specific corner of the industry. And there's a lot to that. There is actual skill involved with that and talent as well. So there is X factor there that can't necessarily be taught.
Well,
and that's something that she had.
Take a look at the Simpsons episode where they're making the Radioactive Man movie in Springfield. All of those businesses start charging ridiculous prices for everything in there, that they're squeezing all the money out of the production to the point where they have to wrap up shop and get out of town because they can't finish the movie because they're broke. Why? Because the city took everything that they had. It was like $200 for a box of nails that were normally like $3.99. So, because they said we are the exclusive provider of supplies for the Radioactive Man movie. Well, guess what? They're not embellishing that. That is kind of how it happens. Like, I've been to other places, especially in Europe, especially in the United States, even in Atlanta, where all of a sudden they find out what project you're on. and they're just like, oh yeah, well, we got this service charge for your production because you're a production account, and a production account has to have these other charges, which they say is red tape and regulation, but it's really BS because we know what the red tape and regulation is, but they're also probably the only providers of that material that we need. So we are stuck with that price unless you want to source it somewhere else and then pay shipping and freight costs and then lose the time, which time is way more important than money. So you end up saying, okay, if it's going to be $200 for a box of nails and we need these things yesterday, we're paying that $200 and we'll figure out how to make up that money elsewhere.
Right.
It's not easy. It could nobody, no business worth their salt would ever bow down and then give discounts or cheaper rates to a film production that they know is worth millions of dollars. They just would never do it. And
they know that they're playing with more money. They have more to work with.
And it's also bad business too. Like, it's okay to have like a little bit of markup because it is a Hollywood studio production that's coming in there. But you know, it's really complicated. And Kathleen Kennedy was one of the best that did that. The other part too, she like Spielberg and not so much Lucas because he kind of, you know, did his own thing. But her, Spielberg, Coppola, who else do I think? Scorsese and them, they all built current day Hollywood. Or at least there's at least less than 6 degrees of separation between some of the people that have worked there over the last 5 years and those names I just mentioned with Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall and Steven Spielberg and all of them there. They're all connected. So you're never going to have any of those people say a bad word about them because the reason they work in this industry is because they said yes to them or someone they knew that carried on that yes to them. So the ladder kept on being lowered down to the next rung for people to climb and move their way up. So at this point here, this announcement, which is coming, I think, from Puck Magazine. So it's not fully verified, but everybody's covering it. And the rumor is that, well, her contract is coming up, I guess, in October. And it looks like she's deciding to bow out this year with her name as producer will probably be on the Ray film coming out, that even though it's still in development, it hasn't moved yet. That would be the last thing her name's attached to. If it does get released, she'll have her name on it. If it gets canned, then her name won't be on it and what have you. But her name's definitely going to be on Mandalorian and Grogu film. Her name's definitely going to be on any future seasons of other Disney Plus Star Wars shows like Andor, which I think is wrapping up this year anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. But if they continue with Ahsoka or what's the other one? It just came up.
Acolyte?
Skeleton
Crew.
Yeah, Skeleton Crew. Her name's going to be on those if they continue because she started those productions, and she's always going to get some stuff about that. So yeah, that it's basically it. So to your point, to everyone else's point, because she leaves does not change anything, and everyone else in the industry knows this. And this is also kind of a thing that I as I mentioned before on this channel, is it's a little bit specific to Americans, is that they like to consolidate all the evil to one person and think if they get rid of that one person, it'll all go away.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works.
No,
not with her, at least.
And the other part too is like, why would you ever want to do that? Because that's just kind of like it's like the dark side, the quick and easy path. Oh, she's gone. Great. Everything's going to be great again. No, you're just relishing in the euphoria of her being absent, but the same problems are still going to persist because, as I said before, it's top down from this. So long as Iger is there, everything that's going on at Lucasfilm, that story group that Kathleen Kennedy handpicked, all the agency she's given to Dave Filoni at the expense of Jon Favreau, the stuff that Carrie Beck is doing was essentially her number one, her first officer of sorts at that studio. The rumors of Kevin Feige leaving Marvel for Disney are laughable. Yeah, it's not going to be the same. The only way it's going to change is if we find out when Iger retires or dies, whatever comes first, and someone steps in as the new CEO of Disney and takes a look at all the properties and says, "Hey, let's start using these properties as actual money makers as opposed to tax write-offs so that we don't have to pay as much money when an Avatar movie crosses $2 billion at the box office."
Sure. And it's actually, so it's kind of funny how similar to how, say, a retailer like I'll take for my own experience, I'll say GameStop
Sure.
would operate in terms of, so you talk about, people wanting to just attribute everything bad to just one person, right? You'll have instances where maybe a store is doing poorly, and so they'll want to just lay all of that on the blame of one individual. Usually they'll say, like, say the store manager, right? We'll
Right.
make it simple. But depending on what the problems are and how long that store manager has been there, those could have, just as you said, that rot could go very deep, and that could have pervaded through the entirety of the staff, because you'll have instances where somebody comes in and they want to do things their way. Sometimes that new store manager, for good or ill, they'll want to wipe the slate clean and start with completely new staff. Maybe they just want to hire their buddies or people that they like, and they're completely unqualified. Or maybe they actually do their due diligence and they want to replace the staff with good workers and people that know what they're doing and things like that. Either way, it still applies. And so, yeah, just getting rid of one person, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be enough. Like we've talked about this for years, right? This is not news to the listeners on this show, because everybody here is world class.
But it also goes into leadership itself. And like, I know these two idiots from the Marines. They've written some hackney books about leadership. They're half right. Good leadership allows for like great results for all your team. But the fact of the matter is, like, if you've got a team of people that are deliberately incompetent, they're not listening to you, and no efforts that you make are actually getting them in gear to do what they're needed to, that is not a failure on the leader. That is basically, you're dealing with a bunch of people that are in a state of arrested development. And you cannot have people under you that are in that state where they just don't want to move. They don't want to budge. They don't want to do anything. And these two Marine idiots, they've written some books. They say, no, it's always the leader's fault. It's like, no, dude, you've never, like, you're a Marines and you are trying to think that you're trying to operate under the presupposition that every business, every relationship operates like it in the Marines, or should operate like it's in the Marines, which is basically collective and drones. Like, you are no longer an individual when you're in the Marines. You're part of a team. You're a band of brothers. You defend each other. You are drones to do a job. And in many cases, you don't have the agency to question orders, and, unless they violate the Constitution. That's when they encourage you to do so. But and this is
if they encourage you to violate your oath, then it's an issue.
Exactly. And the thing is, you can't always take that into account when it comes to a business like a studio system, where the studio system, even though it has a nepotism factor, up until, I would say, the last 20 years, it has always been had that meritocracy aspect, which is, this person can make me money, which means that I want them in my pocket to help make me more money. And I'm going to teach them everything I know so that they can make even more money. And then if I do really well, I'll get promoted, and then maybe they'll take my position, then they'll find someone that'll help make them money. And then the money will keep on growing and growing and growing. When you have something like a Lucasfilm story group, which is modeled off of the Marvel story group that they built with actual comic creators and other storytellers that would be contributing and refining all the scripts before they went into production. The Disney story group, at least for the while, the Disney story group doesn't actually, they have no experience, narratively speaking, on how to write a proper story. They have agenda first. They have their love of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They have their love of Battlestar Galactica. They think the edgy, dark, deconstructionist aspects of things are how you tell stories for the current age, but they don't have any understanding of the classics. They don't have understandings of how to take stories that are about something and integrate them into something like Star Wars, because the original Star Wars trilogy is a story about a son becoming a man, reconciling with the sins of his father, and saving him from darkness. It's a story about that. Dave Filoni only looks at stories of, there have to be stories about Star Wars. No, because Star Wars is the setting, and the stories are personal aspects within those characters.
Stories are about the people.
Exactly. Like, to counter on Jeff's point, the Skywalker saga of Star Wars, that is all you need for that. But you do have this vast universe where you can have other stories. But the fact of the matter is that you cannot try and compete to overtake that first one. You can only complement it. And the best way to complement it is to keep it completely separate from that Skywalker saga.
You can do stuff that build off of that, or you can do stuff that, yes, exactly as you said.
You got a galaxy with trillions with hundreds of planets, trillions of people, thousands of species. You can tell any story you want that has no impact on what happened.
And that's why, in my opinion, the best stuff within the EU has absolutely nothing to do with the Skywalkers, because it's people saying that this universe, this setup is something that has a lot of incredibly cool stuff to work with. Let's tell some cool stories within that are entirely separate from these characters over there, because those characters had their stories told and their stories were beautiful. We don't need to touch those to still entertain people.
Now, but I think that's the problem with all modern entertainment. It's that, not, this isn't pointed at you guys personally, but like,
no, that's fine.
The mentality that you can, it's all business, and they want to sell you more. But I'm a believer that these stories are about the specific characters, and I don't think Star Wars can exist at the marketplace without being tied into that stuff. And there's a reason why Disney, every time they make something, it's tangentially related to the originals. Like every video game that they're making, Jedi Fallen Order or what's that one? Outlaws not be, they may not be with Luke and Leia and Han and all that, but why do we have stormtroopers and this and that? They set everything in recognizable settings so people feel comfortable.
Sure.
And I don't think that there is a life for Star Wars on the big screen anymore, because everything was always tied together, and then it was all completed. And the stuff like Rogue One, what does everybody talk about? Nobody talks about what's his face, Riz Ahmed. Nobody
talks about Jyn Erso. Nobody talks about
Darth Vader in the hallway.
Yeah. No.
What do they talk about sucking in the new movies? They don't give a shit that the stories are poorly written or the dialogue's hokey. Everybody talks about how Luke Skywalker was done dirty, Han Solo is a deadbeat dad, and Princess Leia can fly like Mary Poppins.
Right, and I think so. Maybe to complement your point, because I think there is validity there. I think at the most like highest end pop culture facet of it, and like most big box office version of Star Wars is your Skywalker family story, right? I don't think that necessarily invalidates your ability to tell good stories set in the Star Wars universe that have nothing to do with the Skywalker family. However, I will say, to your point, there is something iconic about the Skywalker saga, the Skywalker era, that family, the story you're telling there, that's where it all began, at least in terms of like the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Not obviously
that's
chronologically,
the lightning in the bottle. Yeah.
But that's your thing. You're not going to recapture that, but you can build upon the world still beyond that. Like it's like with Marvel, right? Like you've got characters that are the bread and butter. Nothing else is going to sell like your Spider-Man. Nothing else is going to sell like your X-Men, right? But you can still tell stories with other characters that are ancillary or, set in the same world, but they're not necessarily having to deal directly with those.
But think of the medium and the price it costs to produce a comic book. Even at the highest end, let's say those guys this is a nice pie in the sky, but let's say these guys are making $1,000 a page. Just that's a round number I'm picking.
None of those guys are.
I know some people who are.
I know page rates. They are not very few guys, I will say.
I know some people that make numbers in that window.
Some are very small.
I'm using them though too because Marvel can afford to do that. My whole point of this is Marvel can throw all their top tier talent, and a book costs a drop in the bucket because to produce these things isn't expensive.
Yep.
That's why you can do. This month's issue of Spider-Man is 70% Aunt May at the doctor's office getting a bunion removed. Okay, and then Spidey swoops in at the end, and hey, next month we'll tell a great story, true believers. These are theatrical and television events that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to produce. And overall, you got to remember what people care about. People don't really care about Superboy. They don't really care about, not Mephisto. That's the wrong character.
They don't care about Quasar and magic, quantum bracelets.
Well, no, and I think,
but they all care about Superman, and Superman never goes out of style. Superman's like Darth Vader, and these characters where it's like people always want more. But on the weird case of Star Wars, people just want more of that thing they like, and I don't mean copy the movie. everyone's cool with just a couple movies, and then you make your books and your shows and you do your stuff outside of that. But like theatrically, it's like, and it's not even just the story of the Skywalkers, because I think that has been, they have conditioned audiences to talk about it. It's always been the rebels versus the Empire, or the story of how he becomes Darth Vader. He really wasn't marketed as the Skywalker family anything, and it wasn't marketed as the Skywalker saga until recently, and that's just a way that people use to break it down. But it's never been that. It's just the story of Star Wars. It's, you know, like the story of, you pick the story of Jesus, the story of Moses, the story of Santa Claus, the story of anybody. Their story is their story, and it's that's what people buy into. And like, nobody gives a shit about ancillary characters on the big screen.
Well, and I don't think we actually in disagreement here, because I wouldn't, as somebody who, my favorite things in Star Wars are like Old Republic things, right? Has nothing to do with the Skywalkers. I don't want any of that stuff in live action. That's entirely separate from the fact that modern day Lucasfilm has completely crapped the bed when it comes to Star Wars. I'm talking even prior to that. I don't need it. I don't need that in live action. I have the comic books and I have the video games. That's all I need for those. So
just what I'm the first movie and I'm good.
So for what I'm saying is, you can still have, it doesn't have to be on the big budget box office scale. Like, you can still tell good stories set in the same universe and not have to deal with those, you know, characters like the Skywalker family, or it be in that window of time where it's the rebels versus the Empire. You can still do that. But yes, to your point, I think when it comes to the big budget box office stuff, what audiences mostly seem to care about is going to be that specific snapshot in Star Wars chronology. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. I don't need a million Star Wars films. I'm good with my 6.
Yeah,
Well,
that's all I need.
I will say this to parallel what Disney was hoping to do with Star Wars that they weren't able to do, is they wanted to parallel Star Trek. Star Trek was for many years the Enterprise with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and the Next Generation, with excluding the few early bumps in the road, ended up proving that you don't need to have Kirk, Spock, and McCoy for people to like Star Trek and what it can stand for and what it can do. And Disney Lucasfilm didn't take the right lessons from that experiment, because that was an experiment. Like, how often can you name a sequel series that has completely different characters, that isn't a soap opera, but still managed to work on its own and then spin off 2 subsequent series after the fact? I think Star Trek might be really the only one. It's definitely the one that's in the zeitgeist of human conversation. So Star Wars has the platform to do that. But the fact of the matter is that no one has been able to come in to that franchise and introduce a new set of characters in its own story that is not predicated on what's already been seen, or anchored by the original trilogy or prequels, to basically say, yep, this can now work in tandem with it. People had potential when it came to The Mandalorian, but they got scared and went straight back to Jedi, to Grogu, to all that type of stuff. And then,
actually, even to Jeff's point, they went straight back to the Skywalkers.
Exactly. and
Immediately.
And that's the problem, is that there's no confidence there. Like, you have to be able to take a risk. I will say this, the Skeleton Crew, that's probably one of the first Star Wars shows we've had that didn't have any type of ancillary reference to a Skywalker. Acolyte kind of did. Yeah.
Funny is the numbers came out, like more data came out. I can't believe how few people even like were aware that show existed. It wasn't the worst thing they've ever put out either.
Yeah. But I mean, I will say this, I did not like Skeleton Crew. It was not worse than the Acolyte, I'll tell you that.
Or Ahsoka.
No, it was not worse than Ahsoka. But
because I know that you hate Ahsoka more than the Acolyte.
Oh, I definitely do. They screw up in very different ways, but at least the Acolyte did not have pointless scenes of characters just staring off into space. The closest you got was what's her name staring at the naked guy in the pool of water.
Shirtless dude, Kumir, right?
Yeah. Manny from The Good Place.
That was such a good show.
It was a great show. But that was The Bad Place. So the Acolyte.
I loved that twist.
So
actually, that was fun to me.
Yeah.
Even though like there was a point where I was kind of skeptical, and I was like, something doesn't add up right now. But when they revealed it, it was still like, that's fun.
Oh, absolutely. But I will put it to you this way: is that Skeleton Crew, out of all the Disney Plus shows, out of everything Star Wars related, Skeleton Crew is probably the first thing we've seen that is not predicated on the Skywalkers in some way. And that's miraculous. I mean, nobody watched it, sadly. Nobody of numbers of consequence for Disney Plus. But that was the first time that you had a creative team that actually committed to, we're not going to bring in the Skywalker family for this. And we're going to talk a little bit around the Force and a little bit around Jedi. And we're going to play it up with that. And the only reference you'll ever get to another Star Wars movie is the fact that Jude Law wore Lando Calrissian's blue shirt. Like, that's pretty much it. So, I mean, even though the Skeleton Crew was not great overall, I would say the methodology behind it of telling a story that's not about Skywalkers, not about Star Wars, but about kids trying to get home, seeking adventure, but trying to get home. That's a story about something that can fit in Star Wars. And you need more of that. You need stories about something that can fit in Star Wars to have fun with it. And the fact of the matter is that so many people, especially now the current franchise owners, even George Lucas to a degree, had a fear of straying too far away from that. Because what did we get in episode 2? Because episode 1, we didn't have it. Episode 2, we got clone troopers, which are proto stormtroopers, guys in white uniforms, killing and shooting at, robots in this case. Also, allusions to proto Star Destroyers at the same time. It felt like he had his imagination, but he was being apprehensive or intimidated by trying to live up to that original trilogy. And instead of letting his full experimental stuff go forward and also getting the right people around him to basically tell him no and dig deeper into his subconscious to get out exactly what he needs, which is what happened for the first 2 films. Jedi, not so much, because Gary Kurtz wasn't there, and neither was Marshall Lucas at that time. We got basically a Star Wars-ish trilogy. Like, it's Star Wars. It's irrefutably Star Wars. But when you compare it on to the depth of the original trilogy, it's lacking if you grew up with that. And also, I've actually started to see people who the first movies they saw were the prequel trilogies, and they're actually finding the original trilogy far more enjoyable to watch now than
because
the prequels.
That's the best part.
My first Star Wars film was Phantom Menace. I've said this before in the show.
I'm so
and it's still that's fine. I know why people don't like it. It's still my favorite one.
Yeah.
And I saw that one, and then like, as luck would have it, like maybe a month later, one of the like classic film television channels were like doing a weekend run of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And so my dad sat me down and had me watch those, because I went and saw it with him. I saw Phantom Menace with him in theaters. We had a blast. I was like 7 or something like that.
You're 10.
Whatever I was, yeah. And
you're the same age as me. We were 10 when that came out.
Okay, yeah. So you remember better than I do. That's fine.
And you should have been 7 and 8 when the special editions came out in theaters too. So
I saw episode 4. I always call it Star Wars. I saw that shit opening weekend.
To this day, I've never had the chance of seeing the original trilogy in any form in theater, or at least any time that it has been re-released in theaters. I haven't been able to get over to theaters to see it, which makes me sad. I know, it was like last year.
Jedi?
I haven't yet, but I want to one of the next times that they do it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Like,
well, episode 3 is getting a re-release for 20th anniversary, so you can go
Revenge
catch it again.
Is okay. I mean, there are things I like about that film, but regardless, like I saw episode 1 in theaters, and then my dad showed me the original trilogy, and we bonded over those 4 films. And it was fantastic experiencing the original trilogy after having seen episode 1. And it was kind of a weird order to watch them in, because you see episode 1, then 1 through 3, or then 4 through 6. And then I saw, as I got older, 2 and 3. I was in high school when each of those released. But
only 3. You were in the
Okay,
7th
no,
grade
I was-
or 8th grade for 2, because I was in the 7th grade for 2.
That's right. Revenge of the Sith. We were
Sith is all five,
sophomores.
yeah.
We were sophomores.
Yeah, we
in
were
high school for
sophomores
that
when
one.
Revenge of the Sith came out. Yeah, you're
I was
right.
in my last year of college.
Dude,
Old
I
man.
remember I skipped school to go see that movie on opening day, episode 3. But I'm going to check in with the audience because we have a lot of patient people. And then we're going to get back into our conversation, folks. Hit that thumbs up button. We know you guys are loving this. I'm reading the chat, the regular chat. Shout out to people like Nolan, Dennis. Let's see. Hey to Chris. We also have Fergulator, Dark Hierophant, and a whole lot more. A lot of names we're not recognizing every week, but we're glad to have you here. And shout out to the regulars like Chuck E. Cheese, Dr. Coffin Nails, Sly C, The Rodent, Trace XL, and a lot more. Can't forget Jettison Guy. I see on Twitter all the time. Shout out to Cosmic Bader. Look, shout out to everybody. I'm just going by, scrolling, picking names I know I haven't read yet, but we're all appreciative that you're all here. So hit that thumbs up button to let us know that you're having a good time. It helps us out. Now, Overkill 161. With Kathleen Kennedy out of Lucasfilm, who will be in charge next? By God, it's Stone Cold! Dude, if Stone Cold Steve
No,
Austin...
it was me, Austin.
Oh, son of a... Dude, that's who's in charge right now, instead of actually pooping
It
on
was
stuff.
me
She
all along.
poops on it. Overkill, I wouldn't mind. Overkill, here you go. Since you're a wrestling guy, go back and watch the episode of Raw where Stone Cold goes into the boardroom of the WWF as the new chairman and, like, drinks beer and puts menorah. Like, I want to see that Stone Cold run Star Wars. You'll just get... Honestly, he would just make the old movie, and that's about it. That's all Stone Cold knows. But that was the point I was going to make. Like, when you have something that's so big that everybody knows about it, and then you keep following it up with lesser than, and then everybody that's around just goes, man, the old one was better, that's got to be demoralizing. But that also, like, should remind the people who own this property, like, where to go, what to do, and maybe they realize that it kind of is a past thing, because there are a bunch of other company or properties out there or studios that have like 1 or 2 properties, or even a toy company like Playmates. Yeah, they just got Power Rangers, but they're kind of just the Ninja Turtle Star Trek people. They weren't, they're not Mattel or Kenner that made dozens of iconic toy lines. They're just known for a couple things, and they know what to do. That's why you have a million different turtle variants. I'm not saying I want Star Wars variants, but I at least want them to understand what goes into it. And Overkill, I think a Stone Cold Stunner and a lot of beer could go into Lucasfilm right now and make it a much better show. And if you agree with that, give me a hell yeah. Strubbles 08.
I think you could put the freaking Hurricane in there, or the Hurricane in there, and it'd be better.
Oh, I agree. I like the Hurricane. We have a request for Mary if she's still in the chat. New Buffalo Jeff button. Has Mary not seen them all?
Who's that Pokemon? It's
Me, your old pal Buffalo Jeff.
Love it.
Very creepy.
Mortifying.
Hopefully Mary is scared. Ruddy, thank you very much for your £2 super chat. He says, only one man can take over Star Wars, Cowboy Bill Watts. You know, if Cowboy Bill Watts takes over Star Wars, there will be no Lando, no Finn, no Reva. Yeah, that's why he got fired from the WCW in the first place. But
That's horrible, but I get it.
yeah, and who was it? Not Hank Aaron. Who's the other baseball player? Maybe it was Hank Aaron. One famous black baseball player worked down the office from him, and they also worked down the hall from Ted Turner. And like, is it Hank Aaron? One of the famous baseball players heard Cowboy Bill Watts say some shit, and then Ted Turner got involved, and Cowboy Bill Watts was fired. But there you go, Ruddy. I'm not a WCW guy. I'm a WWF guy. But thank you, Ruddy. And if Vince ran Disney, it would be just as bad, if not worse, than Kathleen Kennedy.
Lateral move right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great terminology, business terminology there.
Because it's like, hey, we have this one window of time where wrestling's great, and we have this giant house full of crap. Well, the window's nice, but the house is crap. That's Vince McMahon. TLJ Screwjob, thank you. He says, too little, too late, and the whole company is infected.
Yep.
You know, after we're done reading the messages, we're going to talk about what could be next, because I think that could be interesting for everybody in the chat. Just keep on watching. But thank you, TLJ Screwjob. Lester San Jose, the Skeptic Tank member for 23 months. Thank you very much, Lester. Noticing this with Dragon Ball and all they could have done and didn't do. Evident with all the attempts to retcon the lore. You need that discontinuity to keep with the continuity. Things need to die so new ones can be born. You know, I'm going to make the same argument, Lester, that I made for Star Wars with Dragon Ball. There are very popular characters in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but it is the story of Goku. And they even have changed, because there was a point where they were trying to make Gohan the most powerful and this one the most powerful. But, and I hate to sound like a commercial or a marketer first, because I'm an artist. You know, when I write these books and draw these books, I'm not looking at the market going, oh, this will sell. It's what do I want to tell? What is my story that I'm hungry to tell? But from one of these standpoints, like, look at what the merchandise is. Look at what is out there. Like, Goku is Dragon Ball Z. And I will stand by this, is that you can't do all of this. Like, you can't do a Vegeta show. You can't do a Piccolo show. You can't do a Krillin show, because these characters exist.
Well, Krillin would just be dying every episode. So
yes, but all these characters come into the fold for a specific reason. And when you try to tell spin-off stories of what Vegeta was doing 6 months before the Saiyans arrived on Earth, besides, you know, if you want to know what he did before the pod, I don't want to know what he did before the pod. I don't want to know what any of these people do. I don't care what they do. I care if they fit in the story. And anybody, like, I liked Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter and James Bond. I don't want a Felix Leiter spin-off. Why? Because it's just a CIA agent. And the stories are James Bond stories. And so if you watch a Felix Leiter show, all you're going to do is watch for the slightest hint of James Bond. You don't really fucking care about Felix Leiter. And that's really how I feel about a lot of these things with Star Wars and other properties. It's like the world of Star Wars isn't really as exciting as you think. It was done better in the day because you have all of these stories that you tell in this window of time during this galactic struggle. But like for every video game that you may have played, well, Darth Vader's kind of hanging out in the background. It adds legitimacy to your new character because you put them in the old setting and you make them feel relevant. Like Kyle Katarn. Before the EU was wiped away, everybody liked Kyle Katarn or Dash Rendar, these other ancillary characters. But they never tried to make a Kyle Katarn movie. They never tried to do anything besides he's in this game and his books. Same thing with Dash Rendar. Shadows of the Empire is his home. And I don't...
Fun game.
Fun game. But I don't think people realize that these things that you like in this isolated moment do not translate to full films or full sagas. It just doesn't work. And I argue that The Mandalorian, the one thing that could have done that, is now going to be a greatest hits for Luke Skywalker to go on another journey, and they're going to try to get you riled up. But much like you're burned out with Kathleen Kennedy news, you're not going to fucking care that Luke Skywalker came back. This isn't 2020. You're not looking for hope. You're not, you know, in the middle of a pandemic where Luke Skywalker showing up at a door, you know, means something to you. The world's back to normal. You don't care. You're just going to look at this and roll your eyes and go, more Star Wars, because guess what? Disney spent all of this time reminding you that your childhood is irrelevant and it's never coming back, but now they're desperate and they want to sell you on the nostalgia, and you don't care because they told you the truth. It's like the Wizard of Oz. They pulled back the curtain. You saw the man working the knobs and the gears and the things like that. Whatever that thing he turns, the wheel with the knob on it. I digress.
Toggle. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's where I'm coming from, Lester. I love things. I don't want to come off as like this misanthropic guy, but if you were to pitch me, even as a child, hey, Jeff, do you want to watch a spinoff of the Power Rangers that follows Bulk and Skull, but never the Power Rangers? I like Bulk and Skull. They were great, but I don't care. I want to watch the Power Rangers. And
I'm not going to, as a Pokemon fan, I'm not going to watch a show that's strictly Jesse and James. You know, even though they're incredibly formative to like my sense of humor as a human being, I still am trying to follow like the actual main cast.
Who was the cop? Is Officer who and
Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy. Officer Jenny.
I would watch a hard-nosed crime thriller with Officer Jenny. Like every city you go to, it's like CSI. No, it's like cops. And every episode is in a different town. You do all 8 towns for the badges. Pallet Town, Viridian City, all of them, and they each follow the hard, Oh man, and Pokemon.
It's actually not the worst idea ever. I feel like that.
Tell me this would not be amazing.
That could be a fun like mini series. Like I don't know, like 8 episodes or something like that, or like do a 1-volume manga. Like I feel like that could actually be fun.
And now all I'll say is, remember though, and this is
I
why
don't want a game.
No,
of that.
But Pokemon, not all IPs are created equally, and they're not all comparable. Like with the Pokemon comparison, Pokemon starts out as a game, and as a game, you, the player, are the character. I know it's red or blue, but you still are yourself in that. Star Wars and films in general are
the protagonist is just the vehicle for the player.
But that's what movies are trying to do today, and they need to stop, because movies are not vehicles for, random people in Oklahoma or weirdos in California. It's supposed to be for everybody. And I'm sorry that most people don't relate to a 90-pound British lady who gets everything handed to her. I'm sorry that more people relate to a guy who doesn't have his parents, gets beat up, has to learn his way in the world, teaches us with him. Like, I'm sorry that people resonate with a well-written character, a fleshed-out character. That is what it is. I'm sorry. I'm glad Kathleen Kennedy is leaving. Trace XL says, anybody that wants to see me turn Star Wars from used toilet paper back into cosmic badassery, give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Trace.
Appreciate you, brother.
That is the most Canadian version ever. Give me a hell yeah. I want to see Stoke. Dude, that's like Ned Flanders at a wrestling show. Give me a hell. He wouldn't even say heck.
I was expecting a yeah, Amazing.
Oh,
Thank you for being here, Script. Glad you could make it, buddy.
Me too.
Xavier to God says, did you see Toriyama made his own version of Super Saiyan J4?
I did.
What
is
is
Super
that?
Saiyan 4. So the short mini series that is airing right now, and I think has 1 or 2 episodes left, Dragon Ball Daima. One of the last 2 episodes, that introduced Super Saiyan 4. It's a different version of Super Saiyan 4 than what was in GT, and I'm about to piss a lot of people off. It's not as cool. Like, it's fine.
Daima's not as cool?
But no, not Daima's not as cool. The Super Saiyan 4 design, to me, is not as cool. I don't think it's as good as the design. Super Saiyan 4 is my favorite transformation in all of Dragon Ball. And that's with acknowledging that GT is not very good.
I know I'm sounding contrarian tonight, but I like when it was just like the myth of the Super Saiyan. And it was like, what is that? And then you just and that's my problem with all like entertainment, is you keep adding on to it, and after a certain point the Jenga tower just falls. And I love these fantastical elements. I don't need things to be realistic in the slightest bit. But I think this is maybe just for me, but when I catch things that are either new or being reintroduced to us like they're new with Star Wars, because it did have that weird resurgence right before the prequels came out. And with Dragon Ball, like, I was there for the first era of it being on in America and on Toonami, and it was exciting and it felt different. And then it's like, oh, there's Super Saiyan 2? Okay. Super Saiyan 3 with the weird brow? Okay. Fusion? It just was like an arms race to keep powering up. And I'm like with Sly C, it should have just been a legend. Some of this stuff works as like, most entertainment we like, it reaches a certain point of where it gets stupid to me. And the ideas where when they jump the shark are best left in the mind, like that version of Super Saiyan, or honestly the Clone Wars. It just worked better as an idea, not execution, even though it was cool.
This is something that and Jeff, you're a storyteller, so you understand this. Script, you're a storyteller as well. I'm somebody who works within an ever expanding storytelling universe over at the Rippaverse. You have to be very careful when you start dealing with power scaling issues. And if you start ramping up threat levels and ramping up power scaling too fast, all of a sudden it can get away from you very quickly. And then, just as you said, Jeff, becomes an arms race. What's the next most powerful thing that then the hero's got to become another new, more powerful thing? And you lose a lot of the more intricate storytelling to that if you rush into that aspect of storytelling. And it's an unfortunate thing. I love Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. I love things and ideas within GT. overall, it's a cool idea with poor execution. Daima so far, I've only just recently started. I'm like 5 episodes in, maybe. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. It feels a lot more like Dragon Ball than anything has in a very long time. And I mean OG Dragon Ball, where it's just like an adventure story. And that speaks to Toriyama's talents.
Oh, he's great, or was
yeah.
great, excuse me.
Yeah. Rest in peace. But unfortunately, it got away from them very quickly. And it was almost an overnight thing. And then it just never stopped. And that's the thing, because once you go there, you can't ever really stop without like your audience questioning the validity of it and questioning the realism of it, because it's like, well, we already know that they can do this thing over here. What are you going to do to make the next villain be a legitimate threat? Oh, well, we got to ramp up their power. Okay. And now in order for the heroes to win, you got to ramp up their power. Creativity starts going out the window.
It feels like when kids come up with stuff, it's like, oh man, now I'm the super ultra mega hyper blah. It's like, God, it's like
exactly like that. Exactly like that.
It's like, oh man, the Zord's not enough. Now we need a power cannon. Now we need this. Now we need that. You need to buy the toy, says Hayam Saban. So that's exactly what went down. But we read the super chats. Thank you, folks, for all of the support you guys show the channel. Script, in terms of what's next, oh, by the way, let me give you this to one of our listeners. Sam Owen said you're the GOAT of industry insiders, by the way. So you got some love before you showed up.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I do my best.
Well, I always like having you on, one, because we're all friends, but two, you don't play into the narrative. You call it like you see it. So with that in mind, who do you think, you said, was it Carrie Beck is her name? Is that who you think's going to replace KK?
Yeah, that's my suspicion, because she's young. She's, as far as I know, she's the number 2 in, the first officer, the number 2 in charge, because there was a Michelle Rajawan mentioned many years ago, but she's kind of disappeared in the ether. And right now, I think what you're getting, not so much out of the trades, but really out of people who follow the industry, but are not fully integrated into it. They're all throwing out names like Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kevin Feige, and stuff. I don't think Disney. I mean, I would not be surprised if any of those 3 were offered the job, but I don't believe that they're really in contention and as a contender for it, because Kathleen Kennedy will most likely be picking her successor. And despite
give everyone pause.
Well, despite Kathleen Kennedy's incompetence with regards to picking projects and pushing projects forward, she does have an eye for talent. Like, there's not a single person that she has hired with regards to like directing or writing films you could argue are talentless hacks, with maybe the exception of Benioff and Weiss, because they basically grifted off of George R.R. Martin's books. And
they showed the limits of their storytelling abilities once they no longer had new material.
And they were kicked to the curb right away.
Yeah.
And they were kicked to the curb right away. Like, even the guys that did the Lego movie that were brought in for Solo, the only reason those 2 were fired and replaced was because the tone of that film was not what Kathleen Kennedy agreed to for the green light. Mm-hmm. Like, it was apparently far more of a comedy, far more outside of what Star Wars was. And then she wanted them back in. So she get Ron Howard to come in and clean up that thing the best he could in the short time frame that he had. And it's bittersweet, because I would have loved to see Ron Howard actually direct a Star Wars movie that was a proper Star Wars movie.
We've talked about this on the show before, Script. I think we both would love to see Bryce Dallas Howard take 100%. The reins of a Star Wars project in a stronger directorial capacity, because like anything that she's done in the Disney Plus TV series has been more or less the best thing in that particular season of that show.
Yeah, she stands out.
Or at least a standout, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that she grew up in this industry. She lives and breathes it. And at the other part too, she's also earned her place beyond the nepotism. I would not be surprised. I mean, if you were to take her out of the Howard family and then she got into film on her own, I'm pretty sure she would have eventually broken in. She would not probably be as much of a name recognition as she is today, but she'd be definitely like, oh, she's a really good director. She's like a Kathleen Bigelow, who's also a really good female director. I think that it's going to be Carrie Beck or someone we've never heard of before. I think Kathleen Kennedy's going to pick who it's going to be because, again, she's not being forced out. It looks to me like she actually wants to retire because she's pushing 80, I think. Like, she's
up there.
Yeah, she's definitely in her 70s or mid to late 70s, and Frank Marshall is slowing down right now, and I think that she's going to pick a successor. The Hollywood politics within Disney would not like it if a male was brought in to succeed Kathleen Kennedy.
You tell me Jordan Peele shouldn't come in to replace Kathleen Kennedy?
Jordan Peele
I couldn't even get it out.
Jordan Peele needs to go back to actual comedy.
I agree, because what he's doing ain't funny.
Yeah. Well, what he's doing is so up there that I'm pretty sure there is a joke intended behind it, but I think he's batting a bit out of his league there. He has been the guy to me that's cashed in on Get Out for so long. That's why we're getting Nope and what was the other one? Us. Like I feel like he's this guy that's just been riding the cascade. That
I actually only just a handful of months ago saw Get Out finally. I think I saw it like last October or November. And I was like, well, this was all right. It was interesting.
The original ending was very different.
But I was like, I don't understand the hype behind it. It was something that was like, I'm not upset that I watched this. I enjoyed this.
It's a race thing. That's really what it is.
Like, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and a horror. I mean, it's a clever meld of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with horror body swapping type, mind swapping type of thing.
I wound up watching in the same, I think, week. I think it was a fairly low budget horror film, Tarot. And I wound up enjoying
the one that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, and I wound up enjoying that like way more.
Well, because
I was like, this is so much more fun.
I understand that some people feel that every piece of art needs to tell a deeper meaning or have a message. I'm not always about that. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm guessing you enjoyed Tarot, because it's a stupid movie about dying from a tarot card deck.
Yeah. No, the premise is dumb, but it was fun.
But Jordan Peele movies always just try to put black people in roles that aren't traditionally played by black characters and then just tell you the same shit story. It's like, what was that one? Nope. It's
that's
the
Alien Invasion one, right?
Yeah.
It's the Alien Invasion one, but the main protagonist is somebody who wrangles horses for movies. It doesn't matter what color these people are. I don't care. But my point is, like, it just, the movies that's their pitch. It's, M. Night Shyamalan has a twist. Jordan Peele, it's just a, you know what I'm saying? It's just the black
gimmick
version of this. Yeah.
Well, here's the sad part. It's the gimmick, but it's also the ignorance of Hollywood, which is that you make one thing that's great, and instead of asking what do you have next, they say, can you make that again? But different.
Right, can you do the same thing again, but like sell it as different?
Like M. Night Shyamalan got roped into that with his twist after The Sixth Sense. Everything had to have a twist that made you go back and rewatch the movie. The strategy behind that was we want people to go back to the theaters and rewatch this movie so we can make more money at the box office. The fact of the matter is that you cannot force those types of stories on every idea you have, and M. Night was basically trying to do that. Will it be again? Jordan Peele is just following through the gimmick, and I think it has more to do with the fact that, just like with M. Night Shyamalan, the only way he's going to get financing for his movie is if it fits within that mold that established him in the first place, which has always been part and parcel for Hollywood to a degree. But every once in a while, you'll have someone that does something that stands out. Like Clint Eastwood, he did Westerns for a bit. Then he got Dirty Harry. And then he did, Any
Which Way But Loose?
Anyway, yeah, thank you. Any Which Way But Loose.
Oh, I was just joking.
No, but like, yeah, I think he did that. But either way, he did something that was outside of those, like, huge masculine type of films. because he built up his name, and then he also put in some of his own money and finally got someone else to say, yeah, you know what? Let's see what else Clint Eastwood can do. He's been doing this for 15, 20 years. Let's see him do another flick. That's not a typically associated with Clint Eastwood. And that's how he managed to break out, where he's not just Dirty Harry. He's not just the man with no name. He now is Clint Eastwood, film director and actor. We don't have people in Hollywood in the positions that they should be in who understand the business nature of it, but also realize that their craft is turning art into profit. And right now they're trying to turn a metric of profit and call it art.
Yeah.
And it's not working. I mean, I will say this. I have to tip my hat to James Gunn and Peter Safran for exercising discipline, saying, you know what, we're going to put these set of titles on the back burner because the scripts aren't there yet. Because that tells me is like they're putting art ahead of business, knowing full well that if they nail this, art is going to generate a lot of business for them. And I noticed, Jeff, you had a picture of Carrie Beck up earlier, just for people to
get an idea of what she looks like.
Yeah. So
now,
yeah.
Do you think if she were to take over, you think she's going to inherit a lot of the animosity towards Kathleen Kennedy?
Automatically.
Yes.
I think that's like whether she's actually a good person and good for the job, or a horrible person and horrible for the job, or maybe a weird amalgamation. I think that's inevitable. And that's not something you can avoid, really. Like just the way that people work, the way psychology works, we're automatically going to associate that with her, unless it's the people that we know we like. If it's never going to happen. If Jon Favreau were to be offered, right, the position, we'd be like, oh, okay, well, let's see. If Dave Filoni was offered like a handful of people, or whatever holdouts that still think Filoni knows what the hell he's doing when it comes to Star Wars, those people would be happy. The rest of us wouldn't. But there's going to be inherited animosity there, no matter what. I think, like, whether it's right, wrong, or around the bend, I think that's just going to be automatic.
I think people treat Star Wars like a religious experience, so I understand why people are as mad as they are and as deep as they are.
Because it was super formative for a lot of us growing up.
And I will argue, because I like it, of course, but I do think it's one of those things where it's as good as people argue for. Like with Lord of the Rings, I may not love those movies like everybody else, and I don't mean I dislike them. I mean I don't love them as strongly as you do. But I saw Fellowship again the other day. That's just they're well-made movies. I'm talking the trilogy. I haven't seen the Hobbit ones, but they're well-made movies that get a bunch of hype, and they are as good. It's not like Avatar where people praise it and you watch it and you're like, this is hollow and shitty, and it makes sense if you watch it in 3D and you're from 20 years ago nearly, because it's like the appeal's done. It's a gimmicky movie, and that's what a lot of Marvel movies are gimmicky. But some of the good ones are like Winter Soldier. I don't care how bad the MCU gets, put on Winter Soldier and just watch it.
That's still a damn good movie.
Thank you. And that's why, like, with the Star Wars stuff, like, I know people fight for it, but like, outside of a small portion of Return of the Jedi, that trilogy is as good as people say. It has the gravitas and the drama.
The original trilogy is wonderful. I treasure that trilogy. It's fantastic. Like, there are things in Return of the Jedi that I think maybe don't quite fit in with the tone of the rest of the trilogy. It feels a little off.
Missing more Han Solo and Leia.
Yeah, that's fair. There are a lot of. Here's the thing, and this is something that's super frustrating for me as somebody who is. Who's somebody who is an aspiring creative themselves, as well as working in a creative industry, in a creative space.
You're already a creative. Wear the hat, brother.
A lot. Well, I appreciate you. A lot of people, and this is, I feel like, a fairly recent development in script. Maybe you can comment on this. I feel like it's fairly recent in development that people are unable or seem unwilling, maybe is the better phrase, to acknowledge that you can like and praise some things about a piece of work and criticize and not like other things about a piece of work. For a lot of people, it feels like it's all or nothing, black or
Yeah.
white. You hate everything about this thing, or you love everything about this thing. There's no middle ground. There's no in between. And it removes any level of genuine critique and intellectual honesty from the conversation when you do that.
No, it's 100%. It's basically taking the phrase the quote, to paraphrase Marilyn Monroe, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. It's just taking it with that. Like, if you can't, like, you can't understand the nuance of what's going on. Like, I enjoy the Broken Lizard movie Dukes of Hazzard, and I know it's terrible, but there's things about it I can enjoy. With regards to, like, making fun of those types of plots. I liked Burt Reynolds' acting in it. I thought Sean William Scott and
Johnny Knoxville
had good chemistry onto it, but it's really it's a boilerplate film that's paying a little bit of homage to the original silly series, and also at the same time mocking it a little as well. Like, they're not trying to insult people who are fans, but they're trying to say, we're in on the joke. We want to make sure that everybody is in on the joke. And also it spawned off a couple of straight to DVD sequels, which is remarkable. But yeah, I think, like, when it comes, what Andrew is absolutely right, is that we have some people who they will take maybe a flaw that the mass majority would overlook because the rest of the product is so good, and be like, yeah, I have to hate it for this.
Yeah.
And the other part too, and this is also like a dangerous territory, is that since the dawn of social media, people who cry out that they're victims get way more traction and attention than those that cry out for their victories, especially the hard-earned victories.
Yeah.
And so you have to have that whole, I am the underdog. Not necessarily I'm the press, but I am the underdog, and I need everyone's help to help me overcome this obstacle. And that type of narrative, when it's done well, people like rejoice over, but it's not the narrative that we have in social media. And as a result, what do we have? We have people who have given up the power of the things that they love by allowing bad actors, and in this case Disney, basically say, this is Star Wars is ours now, and we're going to do these things that we think is great, but you hate. And now that you hate those, you are having trouble divorcing the fact that frauds have stolen a franchise and made it their own, and now it has tainted the very thing that you love, that helped contribute to the person you have become. And I've said it on this channel, I've said it on many other channels, Disney should not be that powerful to you.
No.
Disney should not make you look back at the films that you loved and make you not want to watch them again. And because guess what? They didn't have a part in making those films. It's not theirs.
I'm going to take what I said and what you just said a step further. So people who, and I see this happen so often, this is especially on social media, people will themselves love a thing, enjoy a thing, whether they have legitimate reason to or not. And if somebody criticizes even a part of that thing, suddenly that's a personal attack. Suddenly that is somehow an invalidation of their enjoyment of that thing. Nobody else's opinion or disagreement or dislike or criticism for a thing that you genuinely enjoy should be so powerful such that it affects your enjoyment of it. Maybe somebody points out a technical thing to you, something that's objective, right? Something that's not an opinion based, something that is like, oh, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe there was a dub that had to be done and it was done poorly, and the voice doesn't actually, the words don't match up with the actor's mouth movements, right? Something like that. Or any number.
Superman's ass is mirrored when he's saving the Air Force One in that first shot.
Exactly. Things that are, completely objective that you can criticize. There are people will take that, just pointing that out, right? It's like, somebody could even preface their criticism with, hey, I actually really enjoy this movie, but they goofed up on this thing. All of a sudden, it's a personal attack. All of a sudden, they're attacking the film. They're attacking the person.
You're describing a religious attachment.
Yeah. It's unhealthy.
And not in the other aspects. Is it only in that one religion where if you draw a cartoon of a certain person, they get very, very offended.
I have not heard this.
I almost experienced this recently on Twitter because that action sequence from The Matrix Reloaded and the highway was circulating around. And I think all the blocking, all the staging of it was great, but they had one huge flaw, and that is they didn't digitally replace the road with a faster road because you can tell that they're traveling 7 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And that kills.
Yeah, they are not going 75 on that highway.
No, everything, like all the camera movement, everything is basically saying like this is intense and this is for the momentum. But they capture the road, and the road is slow. And basically, like when you're on those types of highways, those white lane divider lines are about a car length apart. And if you're able to count 1 second for every time it passes, and you do the quick math, you realize, oh, that's like 6 to 7 miles per hour. They're not. Yeah. I'm walking faster than that. and then you get that wide shot with Morpheus on top of the truck, and you can see the cars in front of them, and they're just moving at a crawl while the motorcycle is coming towards him. It's like you spent so much money on that sequence. You even CGI'd in cars. You even CGI'd in other actors and players in there. But you forgot about the one thing that will entirely encapsulate that scene to make it authentic, and that is making the road move faster. I mean, they filmed it slow for safety reasons, and I'm like 100% on board with that.
Oh, sure, you don't want the people to freaking die, even trained stunt.
This isn't Transformers 3,
exactly, right? Or Deadpool 2.
No, but it's like, fix the road, man. Like I'm sounding like a crazy super pro tax person about the roads, but it's like this is a movie. You're supposed to capture my imagination. You're not supposed to take me out of the story. Make the ground go by fast. Because guess what? If you go back to 1982 and watch Tron and the light cycle race, you see the grid pattern on that road. They look like they're traveling 100 miles per hour minimum because that road is whipping by so fast, even though they're just a couple of guys stationary on some plastic bikes spray painted black that are going to be digitally.
Well, they did the work to try and even in that's a perfect example because the case of Tron, it seems even less believable to the real world, right?
Right.
However, they did the work to try and bring the audience's level of believability to it to be as high as possible.
Yep. And that's right. Chris Cummings, Smoking the Bandit had more speed. Vanishing Point, great movie, had more speed. Bullet had more speed. French Connection. French Connection.
Too.
French Connection. Oh, classic. It's like,
I mean, the fact of the matter is, as I look at that scene, I'm like, everybody works so hard on that. And
they did so much right.
And you watch it for the first time and you're blown away. And then if you watch it for the second time, you're like, wait a minute. And then the third time you're like, holy crap, it's actually slow. And it just decreases your enjoyment of it because they screwed up that one part. And the funny part is there's nothing stopping them from re-releasing a DVD where they just digitally replace the road to make it faster.
Yeah. No, that would be super easy. And that's one of the best scenes in that movie too.
Because some people are purists.
Yep.
And some people, like, I'm trying to think. This is just my guess. But I'm convinced that Back to the Future had its effects not digitally enhanced, but they cleaned up the matte lines for the 4K release. Because that shot of Marty's hand disappearing looks better. The shot when the car goes through, turns into fire, and goes between their legs, that shot used to look hokier. I'm convinced that they've gone back and quietly cleaned it up. How do you guys feel if studios quietly just, like, even using digital assets to clean up a mistake, like visible wires or matte box lines or wires on the actors? Like, how do you feel if they don't even announce that but change it?
If they don't announce it, it bothers me because here's the other part too. So with regards to the purity of it, especially with like erasing like stunt wires and whatnot, is they shot it in a method so that the stunt wires would not appear on film. And after the development process, after the compositing of all their special effects, they still show up. So that is no longer a representation of what the filmmakers wanted. So a digital erasure of those lines is what the intention is. So therefore, that is what the film is supposed to be. When it comes to Back to the Future, especially with Back to the Future 2, I believe they fixed the scene between old Biff and young Biff in the car where when they're tossing the magazine or handing it back and forth, they got it better in sync. And that has more to do not with the fact that they reshot it or digitally altered it. It's the fact that they shot both on film and they had to physically line it up as best they could to make it work. But now with computers, they can actually line it up far more precisely than they could before. So that now it actually works in sync a lot better. They can do the slight modifications in order to make that more convincing, because the whole idea is that they wanted to make this as convincing as possible. Now, conversely, you go to something like, say, Blade Runner or George Lucas with his original trilogy, and he's adding scenes and he's they're changing aspects, and to the point where even the music cues in the special editions for Star Wars are not in the proper place where they're supposed to be.
Well, yeah, because they have to stretch out certain songs because they put in new scenes, but they didn't get new music made for everyone.
Right. Or like the Death Star attack. It's not a full minute longer, but it's pretty close to it. And they've had to kind of loop little parts and then readjust and recut around because John Williams didn't rescore that sequence, because that score that they're using is from the original cut that Williams scored against. So yeah, you can't do those types of that level of reworking of it is disturbing. But for the smaller stuff, like the things that they tried to do, and they tried really well to do, and they almost pulled off, using the current technology here to like complete that little like percentage to make it completely immersive, that's fine for me, so long as they announce it, that they say, you know what, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, but the filmmakers saw it. They did everything they could at the time to try and correct it, but they had to abandon it because they had to meet their date. Now the studio is investing and tweaking it up a bit. Everything is still the same. The time code's the same. The frame count's the same. We just fixed that one piece that we did everything we could in camera to hide it and didn't quite land it, but now it's fixed and now it's fine. And now you've got this secondary piece of media that's more in line with the filmmaker's vision, with everybody's cooperation. And as long as they don't put out of print the previous version, then I'm fine with it, because then you have those two things.
Right. I like having options. I don't mind if you're going to, like, as you said, script, utilize the current technology to do what the person envisioned in their mind and tried to make happen on screen with the current technology of their day, in the initial attempt. I don't mind them trying to make those updates tastefully. I don't like changes being made without kind of at least some sort of a heads up, or like, hey, we utilize these various digital effects to enhance and correct to make this closer to the original vision, yada yada. Okay, fine, fair enough. Don't then invalidate or make unavailable the other version if people do, because you have, just to your point, you have those purists who just want whatever the original release was, even though it was maybe not the exact original vision of the creatives. It was just the best they could do at the time. Still, you have those purists that's what they want. That's the only version they're going to accept. Cool. There's no reason to not make that version available. That's valid in my mind. Like, just let people buy. Maybe there are people that are going to want to own every single version. Okay, make all those versions available. There, you have those
You should
people.
do that.
You have those fans. That's more money in your pocket, right? Other than that, like, I don't mind people utilizing, or studios utilizing, modern technology to tweak or make things feel a little more believable, because I feel like there was an era when it comes to CGI, when it comes to digital effects in films and live action television, where it shifted from, if you go back and watch it now, there's a shift from, oh, that's like charming because like they were doing the best they could with what they had available, to all of a sudden it's like, oh, that looks really bad.
Well, because they're not going for photorealism anymore. They're going for they're creating their own realism. And so everything has to live in that world. Because I was watching George of the Jungle. Love that movie. Now, the CGI isn't Avatar level, but the CGI on Shep, the elephant that's his dog, essentially, looks better than stuff that came out 10 years later. And I do think it's because they used to be shooting for the realism. But I wanted to ask you guys this question. Since we live in a world where they update video games and do all this shit, just humor me for a second. How would you feel if, let's just say Sony, they're going to re-release Spider-Man, but instead of just re-releasing it in theaters, they say, hey, we've re-CGI'd Spider-Man himself to look realistic by today's standards. Do you think that is a viable way for them to get people to watch old movies and maybe resell old movies, or do you think it's just sacrilegious and you shouldn't touch it? Now, with my caveat being that the original ones are always on disc. You can go out to the store and get those. This is just like what the special edition should be of, well, this is what it could look like with modern effects type of thing.
Well, that's not entirely a difficult thing to do, because the CGI that was done for the original Spider-Man had more effort rendering time than what's usually done for current day. So it's technically better than what you get for current day. If they were to invest, like, I'll put it to you this way. If Sony says, we are going to redo the Spider-Man swinging CG effects to current day standards, and we're going to maximize them out to what they should be, I would have no problem with that, so long as every movement is identical to what the original was. But the fact of the matter is, like, even that scene where Spider-Man's dodging, he's in the burning building and he's dodging those goblin blades.
Looks great.
That's a computer animated shot. It looks incredibly convincing.
Well, the blending was done very well there.
Well, yeah,
and the weight of the figure.
They spent months on that. The other part too, which I remember hearing about them doing, is they actually had a couple of acrobats up on wires, and they filmed them doing Spider-Man movements so that they had a frame of reference so that they could kind of match the weight and match the posturing of Spider-Man while he's in motion. Because that was really important to them. Like, I remember hearing a story that if they had, at the time, they could have put a stunt guy or Tobey Maguire in a suit in front of a green screen, and they just had him like miming and mimicking the swinging and being able to match the motion in real time, they would have done it. But they just didn't have the time, and they didn't want to risk injuring anyone in that rig, because you're going to be shooting them in that rig doing things that are not flying but at swinging, which means they're moving in a parabolic pattern, which is not great on the human body for hours on end. They decided it'd be better if we just invest a year or two in actually creating and rendering proper CG models for these characters. And when you take a look at the first Spider-Man movie, there's maybe 20 minutes out of the entire thing where he's like swinging and doing stuff that it's a replace of a CG model, and the rest is in-camera stunts.
Mm-hmm.
So
the first one still looks great too.
It still looks great. And then when you compare that to current day Marvel films, well, guess what? Majority of all those action stuff is computer generated, and you can tell.
And even then, any of the swinging stuff in the like current MCU Spider-Man films, or excuse me, I correct myself, Iron Boy films, look vastly inferior to those first two Raimi films. And even honestly, there's some great shots. There's some great shots in the third film too.
It has the best special effects. I hate to say it, but like if you watch that thing blown up onto 4K, I
still haven't seen the 4Ks.
The figure, I'm just calling. This is how you talk about it in art, but the people, the figures, as you would call them, they have so much weight and detail. Like that black symbiote Spider-Man from the deleted scenes, it looks real. And then when you see some of the later shots, I hate the movie too, folks. But it looks like when Venom opens his mouth after Mary Jane drops the cinder block and he turns around, that looks better than the Venom that's out in Venom 3.
Yes.
It doesn't look as oily. I get it. Symbiote's supposed to be oily. You're not going to school me on Spider-Man, but like it doesn't look. It looks waxy.
It still doesn't work right in live action.
Fit in the world. Yeah. That I just threw out the movie thing because, like, I know people want to talk about the original Star Wars, and some people in the chat are saying the original's never been released. Here's another thing you never thought of, folks. There's no original one edit. There's a 70 millimeter and a 35 millimeter, and they have different audio and different lines of dialogue. Some of the purists on the special edition forums want to bitch, close the blast door. That's in the 70 millimeter print. A lot of the lines from C-3PO about where you find the
70 millimeters, where you find the tractor beam. Yeah.
Yeah, but everybody wants to go, but I want the version I had on tape. Well, the version you had on tape just has about 10 seconds of silence. And it's just the click. Oh, sorry, excuse me. It's just the clicking and the hum of the Death Star over scenes. And I understand that we're all tied emotionally to that version, but you can't really, that's not the original one. So what do you guys want? Do you want the 35mm cut? Do you want the video cut? Do you want the 70mm cut? Because either way, if you want the video version you saw at home, it says episode 4. That movie never said it. It just says Star Wars, and it goes on to it was a time of civil war. And I only bring it up because everybody, like, there's a cottage industry over this, but nobody even has an original version of it.
Not unless you got the, I think the 77 4K thing that they have there. The one thing, the reason why you don't have those audio points in the 35mm is because the mixing for those two audio dubs are actually incomplete on the 70. And you can tell because they feel like they're not part of the room. When you hear close the blast doors, and when you hear, this is where you'll find the tractor beam, it feels like it's was done in a booth and they just didn't fully mix it and integrate it into the actual shot. And I think that's also part and parcel why people prefer what they think is the original version versus what was done in the theaters. And on top of that, the one that most people saw in the theaters in 1977 was the second cut because there was an advanced preview that happened the week before. And it was slightly different film, slightly different length. And it was changed last minute. And that's why you hear the stories about how a bunch of the reels were arriving wet to the theaters to meet that demand because they had it in a one theater. I think it was in New York or Chicago. I can't remember which state. Chicago's not a state. Chicago's part of Illinois. Sorry. But
Chicago's a hellhole, but there's that too.
True. But I know that they had it in there, and then as soon as that thing was done, run its course, and they're about to do mass prints off to all the other theaters, they made a last minute cut, and then that's what hit theaters. So some of the people, I think it was like 120 people saw what the very first version of Star Wars was, and it will only ever live in their memory because wherever happened to that set of reels, I don't know where they are. Maybe they're buried somewhere on Skywalker Ranch, but all the stuff
they're
that
probably there.
Everyone saw is there. Yeah.
Well, Script, the only reason I ever make that point is it's kind of a pointless or a futile argument to make since you can't call it the original. That's the only reason I ever bring it up. Yeah, I like to nerd out about the minutia, the audio and all that stuff.
Yep.
But I always find it funny when people want I want the original cut. No, you want the videotape that you saw as a kid. And that's fine. There's no judgment at all. Hell, I like the 1997 cut of Return of the Jedi.
Experience of the thing. It doesn't matter.
Some people do.
It doesn't matter that it was your, it doesn't matter if it was the original or not truly. You want the one that you remember the most clearly.
I would love if I had people say, what would you do with trillions of dollars? I would love to do what Elon Musk did with Twitter. I would just buy Star Wars flat out from Disney, and I would make my own edits, and I'd be like, all right, folks, I got the merchandising rights too. Guess what we're going to do? We're just going to make the shit you want. Let's get some.
We're just going to make the characters you actually want to pay your money for. Oh, wow. Imagine that.
I mean,
I would divide the fandom if I had Star Wars because I would remake the prequel trilogy to fit more in line with the original.
I might be a bigger asshole and just say, hey, I'm sorry, but that's not canon anymore. I might be that guy. It's like, I'm going to torture you fine people. I'm going to give you everything you want from the original Star Wars, and that's all that exists. I'm sorry. You love Padme and Anakin.
No, one, 2, or 3 episodes. Yeah.
No. Like, all those lines of dialogue about Princess Leia meeting her mother might have happened. All those lines about a certain point of view and all that crap. We don't need to watch Anakin fall in the volcano. That happened. Like, how did we all know that Anakin fell in a volcano? That was like a thing everybody knew before. Like,
it was
before
in a couple of books. I remember it was in one. I remember it was in a book about like the gear. Like it was a white kind of a placemat sized flip book of Star Wars gear and costumes. And one part it talks about Vader's suit and his lightsaber. And it basically mentions that he fell into what was called a lava pit at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty fascinating. I'm like, I got to find where that story is because I thought it was in a book or something. I dug around. This is pre-internet. Never found it. And then, the prequels came out and I just stopped caring about anything before the OT and just
It
focus
did-
more on the OT.
It did. That was the same thing for me. And I know I'm known in some parts of the internet as a Star Wars guy, but when episode 1 came out, I didn't like it so much that I went, I don't like Star Wars. And I didn't buy. Now, hold on. Don't quote me on this, but I for sure, unless the Power of the Jedi, or sorry, the Comtech Han Solo came out before episode 1, I don't think I asked for or purchased another Star Wars toy until like 2002, which is a lot for me because I'm a collector. And even as a kid, I was like, oh man, new Luke Skywalker with bendable knees. I got to have it. Han
And I
Solo
wanted all
holster,
the
that works.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Darth Maul figures.
Well, the thing is, dude, I had Obi-Wan and I had Darth Maul. I thought that movie was going to be a game changer. And we went and saw it and I was like, oh, okay. And then it was like, I saw it in June because I saw it the weekend Austin Powers came out. And then if you knew me, like Star Wars was part of my identity as a kid. It's like, oh man, I was so amped up. I had the Pepsi cans. I had this. I had the Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC toys. I had it all. And then it's like, oh, I saw the movie. Well, maybe I don't need this. Oh, I saw the movie. I don't want the t-shirt. I don't want this. I'm not going to drink Pepsi anymore this summer. And by the end of the year, I was just like, oh yeah, Star Wars is this movie that I liked. And then it sat on the back burner as a dozen other things came, but Star Wars did survive. But I mean, if you can turn me off, somebody that's like, I mean, you watch the channel, you know what's up with me. Other people are definitely turned off. And it's not about the prequels. It's any of the generations. It's Kathleen Kennedy. I do think Star Wars is really this like trilogy of films that works and everybody seems to gravitate towards it. And then everything else is just there. And, you know, here we are all these years later. We're still talking about it though. That's all I can say. An alternate take on Return of the Jedi. Sorry, that caught my attention. How would you guys fix it? Like if script, okay.
Yeah.
If you have all the money in the world, all the resources, and all the ability to just straight up remake Return of the Jedi and it would match. We're not talking iffy CGI or, you know, funky effects. We're talking no human eye can ever decipher the fact that you made this movie post 1983. What are some of the things you're going to do to fix it, if anything? Say it for you, think about it.
Well, one thing that I would really want to focus on is Han Solo realizing that the rebels might win and not knowing if he is going to be with Leia afterwards because of the amount of responsibility she would be stepping into to rebuild the Republic and stabilize the galaxy. And he'd be worried that there'd be no place for him there. And he's wondering, will I go back to being a bad smuggler who is getting by the skin of his teeth against, you know, the Empire, which will now probably be the New Republic? Or am I a leader and a pilot? And can I become the man that she needs me to become for that role? Because that continues and completes their love story that we got established in Empire.
That also completes his character arc.
Yes, 100%, because he goes from
because he does grow.
Yeah, he goes from this great pilot who's a terrible smuggler who then sacrifices that old life to fight Goliath with his friends, and then he's willing to leave his friends to pay off the debt to Jabba so he can continue his life without having that death threat on him. And it's left ambiguous as if he'll come back or not, but you get the sense that he wants to come back. And so with now that being resolved in Return of the Jedi, and I'd probably alter that resolution a little bit better, at least just filming it cinematically better than how it was shot. I think the next part would be like, holy crap, this is our one shot to actually get rid of the Emperor and completely tip the scales in our favor against the Empire. And if that happens, Leia's no longer going to be on the rebel side of things. She's now going to be an administrator because she is royalty, you know, by adoption. Actually, I wouldn't even have Leia be Luke's sister. I would not make that. I would change that 100%. I'd make the story end with Luke having, you know, rescued his father and go on a journey to find his sister somewhere in the galaxy, because that makes more sense. And that was also kind of the original intention of Leia's character. And and then I'd have Leia kind of contemplating the same thing, where she's grown up her entire life being taught a little bit of the royalty aspect, but also being a rebel on the side. And now she's wondering, like, can I be that type of person that I'm a diplomat, even though I'm very good with a blaster, you know? And though that dynamic is something you want to have in there, because you can play into some aspects of the mistrust that you get with Han Solo when you first meet him, which is Han Solo the type of guy who would he sabotage a mission to stay with Leia, but knowing that he couldn't live with himself if he did so, because it would mean the Empire still persists, right? Because the whole idea is that you just throw that doubt in there, but as an audience member deep down, he would never let that happen. He would have to basically think of it and come to this conclusion of, for the freedom of the galaxy, I am willing to sacrifice my relationship with the woman I love. And then the victory at the end is that she's not letting Han go away now that they won. Like, he's ready to let her go, knowing that he's not the type of guy that would fit into her world in that aspect. But she's the type that would say, no, you're not getting rid of me that easily. And that completes their love story and arc. And I think that's what was really missing from Return of the Jedi. Ewoks, you don't even need them. You just don't. And I also probably wouldn't make it.
I don't hate them, but yeah, you don't.
I wouldn't make it a Death Star thing. I would make
Bingo.
I'd make it an assault on Coruscant itself, and I'd make it more of like a Mission Impossible breaking in and taking over a building and trying to, and basically just trying to take out the enemy. Because I know other writers would be like, no. What we'll do is we'll have them like bombard the planet, and it'll be a huge like fight of destroying the planet itself. I'm more of like, no, space battle on the outside, just and just distracting, the perimeter guard, and an elite squad getting through that perimeter, landing on the planet and capturing the Emperor, and giving him an ultimatum: either surrender to us, or not. But in that action, that elite squad gets delayed, and it's Luke Skywalker facing off against the Emperor and Vader. That thing plays out as it does, and by the time they get there, Luke has already defeated the Emperor. So now it's basically like, okay, we've held this aspect. What's the next part? Well, now we got to fortify our forces and basically share with the rest of the planet and then the galaxy that the Emperor is gone, and we've taken over the capital world, and we are going to be on the forefront of freeing the galaxy from this rule. And that's where Luke says, I got to now find my sister. And he decides to go off on his pilgrimage as a Jedi, and it's left to Leia, Han, and the rest of the rebels to form a new republic. And the galaxy goes off in peace. And this is me spitballing it right
now. Andrew, do you need a minute, or do you want me to go? Because I got a couple ideas. I don't want to cut you off, though.
No, go right ahead.
So, Script, I definitely, like you, don't want another Death Star. But I think I would do something. This is why I would kind of wipe out the prequels. I'd have Darth Vader be the ultimate bad guy and have him lie, like, I wasn't your father, I killed him, and then like tell the story of how he killed his dad. I'd want to see that, because I love the way it all goes down, especially with him and the Emperor and all that stuff. But I do feel like he all of a sudden really switches, because like he knew he had a son. And now that the son knows he's out there, then he changes. I kind of like the idea of just like Darth Vader, like the ultimate bad guy. That's why the first Star Wars works for me, because Darth Vader's just a bad dude. He will choke his own people. He'll kill people. Hell, he was going to rip off the guy's armor in the original cut. Go look at the storyboard. He rips the dude's arm off and then throws him into the wall. Like he was a gnarly character. My alternate Return of the Jedi, obviously you got to rescue Han Solo, and I'd keep that pretty similar. I like it. I would keep the original music though, not Jedi Rocks.
Oh, Lapti Nek is way better than Jedi Rocks. I would just shoot that music. I would just shoot that to be a better looking music.
Do you know what the song the actors were dancing to was?
Can't remember.
Track. It's okay. Everybody that is dancing to the original song is dancing to Super Freak by Rick James, and if you sync them up, they actually like. That's why that song is as weird as it is, because they're all sitting there dancing to Super Freak to trying to get puppets to match. And watch the documentary. They literally say, we're white, we couldn't keep rhythm, but we could all dance to Super Freak. Their words, not mine. So that's what's going on in that. And I like the original. Fuck, let's just put Super Freak in it. No. But all joking aside, like the movie kind of just, once they get to Endor, it gets kind of not even bad. It just falls apart in weird ways. It becomes repetitive. And man, I would have like, this is me spitballing it. I kind of keep Han Solo, if they're not going to Coruscant, because I haven't come up with where they go, but let's say they do, I would want Solo. Really, I feel like him without the ship is weird. Like when he looks at the Millennium Falcon, he's like, I have a funny feeling I'll never see it again. And then if you don't pay that off with killing Lando or destroying the ship, it's just a premonition that I don't really think adds much. So I want to see Han Solo back in space. Like, we don't get to see him do anything really cool in his ship. I list my Star Wars characters like I list my video game characters. Han Solo is a pilot who shoots. Princess Leia can shoot, and that's it. And Luke can use the Force and is a pilot, but isn't a really good shot. So in different ways, they all balance each other out. And I'd find a way to tell that story.
I'd definitely have the Millennium Falcon be the thing that penetrates the perimeter, and that's the ship that you fly through, and have that flying through Coruscant would be a great set piece. I love the idea of like Darth Vader still being like having lied about the father part. But one of the things I would have done if I remade the prequel trilogy is I would have had introduced in episode 2 a clone of Anakin Skywalker, have the clone and Anakin fight in front of Obi-Wan and in front of I guess Padme, for want of a better name, and then have one of them die, and have the narrative imply that it was the clone that killed Anakin Skywalker. And then for episodes 3 and 4, you think that Darth Vader is the clone of Anakin Skywalker, the evil clone of Anakin Skywalker. But then at the end of episode 5, you realize, oh, wait, he's not the clone. He's the real thing. And the way you confirm that is the fact that when you're cloned, you only have the memories of the person you're being cloned from at that point. And between that clone in episode 2 and the end of episode 2, Anakin finds out that his wife is pregnant. So he knows he has offspring. And so when he hears of Luke Skywalker at the end of episode 4, and then he's pursuing him in episode 5, and when he says that, you as the audience member would still get the same emotions. Like, wait a minute, because he's the clone. But then you get Return of the Jedi where Yoda and Obi-Wan confirm, no, he's really your father. And you realize and you see the gravitas. And that's how you were able to make that story work, where you can watch it for the first time in chronological order and not lose that special twist, or you could watch it in order of release and still not lose that special twist. And also it leads better into what the Clone Wars should be, which is not just assembly clones fighting robots. It should be invasion of the body snatchers. You don't know who you can trust because they could be a clone and they're manipulating crap around the world to allow Palpatine to take power.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
I do wish the Clone Wars are very well executed, especially for like the time when they come out. We're talking War on Terror, militarism is, big and popular. You got Star Wars in the military, the clones, the Brotherhood, all that works. The video games work, all that stuff. When I say like I want to wipe these things out, I don't throw away the fact that there are good things out there, folks, in these worlds. Me personally, I mean, shit, if I had the superpower to make everybody hate me, I'd be like, all right, there's one Star Wars movie and we all love it. And sorry if Empire's your favorite one, but it doesn't exist anymore. All hail the original movie.
Oh, no.
No Yoda. I know, it's horrible. I like Yoda just fine. I'm not anti-fun. Andrew, anything you guys would like to add in terms of your idea for Return of the Jedi? If not, no big deal.
Each of you have presented some really cool and really intriguing ideas. I'll be honest, like what Script just said is intriguing as an idea, but something about it just doesn't sit right with me within the scope of Star Wars. And maybe that's a personal thing. I think it's a well thought out and interesting premise. I think if I were to redo just Return of the Jedi, I don't actually personally hate the Ewoks. I think they're kind of silly. And I understand why Lucas put them in there, but I also don't love them. There's a part of me where it's like, okay, I'm also one of those people who doesn't hate Jar Jar. I also understand what his purpose was. He's pretty retarded, but like, I understand why he was in that movie. I feel like you could swap out the Ewoks with maybe some surviving Wookiees who got away from Kashyyyk. and they kind of colonized Endor. You can tell a similar story on Endor with the Wookiees as Lucas was initially doing there with the Ewoks. The overarching story, I wouldn't honestly change much. I like Scripps' notes of honing more in on the Han and Leia romance aspect, and like, okay, if I'm Han, like, what's really my place here if the rebels win? Where do I have a place here if the rebels win? Right? Like, I'm this schmo. I'm a smuggler, right? I'm an awesome pilot. I'm kind of a crack shot. But does that really bear out in a world of peace? In a world where, the Empire is overthrown? I don't know. Like, what does that actually look like? I think there's really interesting character work that could be done there. I would not change a thing about Luke and Vader. I'm not actually a Skywalker person, personally. I think as important as the Skywalker family is, they're some of my least favorite characters. Not that I dislike them, but they're some of my least favorite characters in the franchise. However, I think something incredibly important that I always hone in on when it comes to the Skywalker era is, and I think it's a character determination, and it tells you something about Luke as a person, something that he didn't know himself, is that he has a faith and hope in the best in people, to where even after learning all of the absolutely horrible, atrocious things that his father did, he still believed there was good in him, to where he still pursued that and he fought for that and he resisted the dark side to try and get through to that. I think there's some genuinely beautiful storytelling there and really great character work, and that's something that I always love about the original trilogy and about Return of the Jedi especially. I wouldn't change a thing about that. There's probably a lot more that I would leave the same than I would change in Return of the Jedi.
Even though music's got to stay the same for me, because that music's great.
The score is incredible. There, like I said, there's some things I would tweak here and there. Overall, I wouldn't really change much. I would go back and I would absolutely, now if we want to talk the prequels, well, as much as I like the prequels, and we won't do that. As much as I love the prequels, and as much as Phantom Menace is my favorite one, even though Empire is the best one in my opinion, I would tweak so much of that dialogue.
You mean it would sound like humans are speaking?
It would sound like people actually talking. Yeah, not, I don't know, like Microsoft Office, like AI text to speech from 1998 or something like that. There would be a lot of dialogue. I love
the 90s too, but technology has definitely advanced. I'm with you.
Yeah, dialogue would be the biggest fix. There are something I would leave, like one or two of like the corny lines, because I think they're fun and you could be okay with that. But there's a lot of just very robotic dialogue. Mark Hamill, and I'm not going to attempt to repeat the quote, but Mark Hamill has in numerous interviews talked about there being a line of dialogue that he begged Lucas to change that was absolutely ludicrous in the first film. And
you mean the Aquilai and Sullust one about something about the defense couldn't be any greater?
Yes,
because he quotes it in one of the documentaries, and I'm like, this is why when everybody says they want George Lucas to have full control of everything, I go, no, you don't.
No. That's George Lucas needed more no people, or maybe even just more. Okay, but what if? People who are willing to push back against him and say, I like the idea that you're presenting here. how can we refine this
Well, it's
to
not
come
only
across
that,
as more
it's-
human?
George Lucas would basically dismiss one of his own ideas if it couldn't hold water, and he needed to have people around him that would challenge those ideas so that he knew whether or not it could hold water. And that's what it was, because again, if you see all the raw footage of Star Wars before did its first edit, it is not a good movie. Like, it's a miracle the way that Star Wars landed the way it does, all because there's tons of great ideas all in there, but it was just the original plan of how it was going to be cut together did not make it a more inventing narrative. I mean, you watch that original scene in Obi-Wan's hut as it was originally written, and it just doesn't have the pace or rhythm to it that the final cut of it has. It's all the information is there. It just had to be shuffled around, because the one thing that Lucas had a problem with his dialogue is that he was kind of repeating stuff in the scene over and over again, and he only needed to do it once. And there are some parts of the repetition that sounded way better than the original or the first variation of it, or maybe the first variation sounded way better than the third one within that scene. And basically, Marshall Lucas and Richard Chew and, oh God, who's the third editor there? They all just cut
Paul Hirsch.
Paul Hirsch, thank you. They all cut the redundancy parts out, and then they found what the actual core narrative was. And at the end of the day, Lucas was like, that's what my movie is. He's like, you guys did what Michelangelo did. I gave you the block of marble, and you trimmed out everything to create the statue of David. And with Star Wars, and that's what they did. That's why you have the term saved in the editing bay. And then when he stepped back for Empire, it was Irvin Kershner who basically said, you're not going to like this, but I am making this version of Star Wars my movie, not yours. And that was technically what Lucas wanted until the budget started to inflate.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I mean, Empire is still a great film on its own, and it's very compartmentalized. You can watch that movie and not any of the ones also around it and still be perfectly fine and know exactly what's going on in that story.
It really does look much better. As much as I do love the first movie every day of the week, when you put on Empire, you see the biggest jump between any of these movies. Like, I get that Episode 1 has CGI and all this stuff, but like Return to the Jedi had pretty good cinematography and for its time, great special effects. Like the Battle of Endor, all that affects the space battle, they didn't re-CGI that. Like, they really got that motion capture, however what is it called? Go motion, whatever that camera.
Go motion and motion control syncing. Yeah, all done.
It was all perfected by Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I've joked about it on the show. Like, if there was a special edition of Star Wars, I wish in like 1985, George Lucas would have went and taken a couple bucks and said, we're just going to quietly fix the special effects on those, but with the same like models and what existed still, and the same technology, and just do it and clean it up. I don't think there would have been a special edition in the 90s, because you kind of, tweaked it to the best you could have. And I think it would have looked more pure.
Well, the special edition had two reasons for it. Number one, George Lucas fixing the stuff that bothered him. And number two, because he's technically recut it, he got his ex-wife, Marcia Lucas, out of that variation. So she still has a big piece of that franchise with regards to like royalties and payouts of that original cut and what it stood for. But all the stuff that's all the re-releases and all the other versions, she's not associated with that. That still is split between Disney and George Lucas, even after the fact that he sold the entire franchise and studio to them.
Now, if the rumor's true that like she had cheated on him or whatever, that is people say that would be petty. I think that'd be the gnarliest thing to do. It's like, yeah, you cheated on me, but I'm going to cheat you out of the biggest thing in history. Like, he found a legal loophole. We just recopyrighted it in 97.
I mean, I heard that story in the early 2000s that because George was so occupied with trying to keep Lucasfilm alive because Empire was taking too long, and they're also building Skywalker Ranch, and apparently the carpenter who built the library was the one that was smitten with Marcia while they were still in the process of adopting their first kid. And the rumor is that those two kind of fell for each other for that moment. And then when the job was done, he left, and Marcia just did not feel connected to George anymore. And then she wanted to leave. And then George heard of her relationship with that carpenter. and said, yeah, to the end with you. And that was it. And
Good for
I don't
George.
know, like, and the thing is, I don't know how far that relationship actually went between Marsha and that Carpenter. It could have just been like conversations and attention. It could have been a full intimate thing, but Marsha has publicly stated that she never cheated on George, and that she still loves him, despite his being a cold fish, to quote her. But that was the story. That, I mean, here's the other part too. That divorce definitely devastated her because she never edited a feature film ever again, and she was probably one of the best editors in the industry, next to what's her name, who does Martin Scorsese films, whose name is escaping me right now. Son of a slate. Sorry, guys.
Is it the older lady that did Martin Scorsese's movies? Is that the one they talk about in
Yeah.
in Hail Caesar, like later on?
Yeah, like she's been editing most of Scorsese's movies for a while. I think she passed away. She was of the same school of Quentin Tarantino's original editor, who was also a woman. They just knew how to do that stuff, knew how to find that voice that the director and screenwriter put on the page and just get the best out of it in that final cut.
Well, I got to give Marsha Lucas credit. I know I can joke about, cut her out, screw it. Like, I ain't there. But she edited my favorite movie scene of all time. And the one part of Star Wars I watch more than any is the Death Star battle. Yeah, Battle of Yavin. But
yeah,
she did it. Like, I give everybody credit. I'm an artist. You don't want to cut anybody out. But damn it, like, that editing job is tight. She got an Oscar for a reason.
Oh, 100%. And you know what the fascinating thing is? She modeled that editing stuff off of a bunch of World War II footage and some other films that used airplane footage, and she took advantage of what George shot with and what ILM shot with the Dykstra camera, and just made that thing music, like visual music. And you can't say like anything bad about it. It's that even that original one for at that time, that is incredibly impressive work.
Oh yeah, there's only a handful of shots that they really re-CGI'd, because I'm the guy that, like, I can tell you, and it's not that I read it, it's just I can see the difference, and so I'm like, oh, that's an original, that's a change, that's an original,
Well,
that's a change.
The
And
most
if you
obvious
watch
one is the X-Wings leaving Yavin for the first time, where they're just so far away you can't even see them. There's dots.
See, now limitations like that don't bother me, but some of the shots, and this is just me being a nerd, like any movie, even old Star Trek, I hate when you watch an old science fiction movie and the ship doesn't go straight towards the object. It kind of has like a weird tilt and the thing like glides. And it just, to me, that always looks fake, because it's like you're going sideways, but you're moving forward. It never works. There's a couple of those shots where like the X-Wings are like flying towards the camera, but they can't really get that effect. So they kind of like glide over. And then there's one shot, and this is me being super nerdy, where they show the X-Wing go down and they show the exact same footage again. And I'm like, all right, I guess you were just, I didn't make the movie. I know how to edit shit. I couldn't edit Star Wars. But I was like, is there no other footage of an X-Wing just like descending? Because it's just over and over. And I'm like, all right, that kind of throws me off, but that's neither here nor there. Let's check in with the audience, because it's getting towards midnight. And while we're having a great time and more people keep rolling in, folks, we want to make sure that everybody that sent in a super chat doesn't have to wait till the stroke of midnight. So I want to thank everybody, but I want to thank Headcase Laboratory right now for sending in this one. Super Saiyan J4 should have been God form. Am I right, Andrew?
I answered this question to him in the actual live chat. However, I'll repeat it. One of the things I like most about the Super Saiyan 4 form is that it made it feel like it was something specifically tailored to the Saiyan race, more than any of the Super Saiyan forms than we'd seen in Z. So the Golden Uzaru, the Golden Great Monkey, Great Ape form that we see in GT feels like it's the true sort of base Super Saiyan form. Excuse me. And then Super Saiyan 4 feels like it's an evolution or a perfection of that form. And I really like that idea. I like the idea of keeping it within the Saiyan race specifically, rather than making it divine or God energy, like what Dragon Ball Super presented with all of the different, like, this is Super Saiyan God, then this is Super Saiyan God Blue, then this is, that I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of any of those forms in terms of visuals or lore. I think they're unimaginative comparatively. I like the GT forms personally, the Golden Great Ape and the Super Saiyan 4 form as they are in there.
Dude,
That's
do you
my
want to hear
preference.
how specific I've been getting with my DBZ when I do watch it? Like,
Hmm.
I'm getting to the point where I have like preferred art styles for each. Like, it's like, you know,
Based
art
on the
changes per
animator?
scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, whoever like the team, the group, whatever you want to call it, whoever animated the Saiyan saga on Earth, I like how the characters look slightly cartoony. There's a little
Yeah.
more bend to them. That to me is like what peak Dragon Ball Z looks like, and I like how it looks on the Saiyan the Namek saga because it looks the same. But whatever came later, when they got like that refresh where everyone's super cut and the artwork is super detailed, and I know some people like that look. I like the more organic, kind of lumpy Kaioken pre Super Saiyan Dragon Ball Z.
That's fair.
But,
yeah. I mean, that looked
but-
great. It looked absolutely great.
It really. I wish they would release it in 4K with a perfect scan. Just let me buy it once, Crunchyroll or
They never will.
Funimation.
They have
I
some
know.
really bad, like half-ass upscales at best that you can buy officially, and that's it. My buddy
Okay, what you're
Geekdom
telling me-
101 has he'll stream actual 4K HD versions of the episodes that were done by people privately that utilized AI programs to like truly upscale the actual cells and everything, and it's pretty wild, like the difference, because I own HD versions of all of Z, and if I were to set those side by side with what he streams on his Twitch channel, it's a night and day difference.
Did you see the post on social media? Some guys found a film reel of one of the movies. They bought it legitimately and they scanned it and cleaned it up like you would professionally. And they showed the footage and it's amazing. And people say that it's a notable fan preservation because it's the only true 4K scan of the head Chalal opening.
Yeah.
Because it's got like that version of the movie had the opening on it.
Yeah.
So they rescanned all that and it doesn't even look. It's embarrassing how shitty the official release looks.
Comparatively, yeah. It's
The fans got to step
ridiculous.
up, like with Star Wars, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes, look, I'm not saying fans should always write these things with a W, but fans should always write these things with an R because they always get it better than like the official company. Like I'm friends with one of the 4K 77 team. They're all like, I think all the people work on all three of them. Like that dude has posted clips and photos and stuff. That shit looks better than the real deal. Now that's when I'll back off and say, man, the fans know what they're doing. Addy One and those special edition changes, maybe not so much, but that kind of stuff, the preservation, top notch.
Well, aren't the 4K guys like they legitimately know how to do all that stuff as well? Like if doesn't one of them actually work for like I think Warner Archive?
I'll ask my friend because he's a collector and he has always tagged me in these posts, but
yeah,
I will. I
heard at least one of them on the team like works actually in like film preservation and with physical media. Because I mean, the stuff is professional, like it's professional grade. And guess what? Like I know, like until recently, because Technicolor fired like a massive amount of their staff for reasons I wish I knew. All those guys there were like they were technically minded, but the reason they went into that is because they loved movies, and all they wanted to do is just like get the best quality out of all of those films. And when the technology came about, to it's like, oh wait, we can actually get like literally cinematic quality on a portable disc that people can see at home without having to buy a film projector and then and thread it themselves. That is fantastic, and they loved doing that. And you know, you have to be the type of guy that likes that technical stuff in addition to just what's on the actual film itself.
I mean, I've gotten to a point with some of these movies where I've watched them so much that the movie themselves are less interesting than the production and the technical side and all that. So that's Star Wars. I'm like, I've seen the movie. I've definitely watched the first Star Wars more than 500 times in my life. That's a lot of wasted time. But my point is, I'd rather, if you're like, hey man, you want to watch it, or do you want to like watch this never before seen documentary every time?
Yeah, well, 1,000
That's
hours
fair.
of Star Wars is definitely a lot of time.
That's fair.
That's like that's half a year, I think.
That might be a conservative guess. Like when I was a kid, man, I'd watch it, rewind it, watch it, maybe go do something. It was like Sunday afternoons. I had all my homework done. There was nothing to do. We weren't going out. I was gonna watch Star Wars and play with my toys on repeat, and no one ever complained because
Movies that I would watch the makings of all the time. Like I would watch, because I had the trilogy on DVD, all of the Jurassic Park films and the Star Wars films. I would watch the movie itself, and then I would watch all of the featurettes and the makings of documentaries and all of that stuff. Like I would watch them just like one right after the other, all of the time. Like it was an absolute joy to like experience the movie that I loved, and then like get that little fly on the wall behind the scenes stuff afterwards.
Dude, sadly, Kathleen Kennedy's a part of a lot of that.
She is, yeah.
She's on all the Back to the Future and Indiana Jones special features.
She's on a lot of the Jurassic Park stuff too. That's one of my top 3 movie franchises.
Is it wrong that I really about faced to like, look, I've always loved this movie. It truly is a favorite. But is it wrong that I take solace in knowing that Kathleen Kennedy didn't touch Beverly Hills Cop in Ghostbusters? Like, those are the movies when I'm just like, yes, I don't have to worry about her ruining Beverly Hills Cop for Ghostbusters. Then again, Ghostbusters kind of got ruined. Let's keep on. Speaking of Kathleen Kennedy, what has more dust, KK's vajayjay or the Shuri copter at Ollie's?
I'm not thinking about that.
I'm pretty sure it's the copter at Ollie's because I hear that. I mean, her and Frank Marshall are still together. They still live in the same house, even though they have multiple homes, and they have a number of kids and grandkids. So,
hey. Just because you make terrible Star Wars movies decisions and you fuck up Indiana Jones and you fuck up your company, you might still be getting it at home and be a good wife. I don't know. Like, I take great pleasure in everybody dunking on her shitty Star Wars. Don't ever forget.
Remember, she's not necessarily evil. She's just incompetent.
Well, I will play remember, living out west, you always know somebody that knows somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, hold on, though. I knew a very reputable guy. I will never say his name on air. I might tell you if you're really curious. But my point is, he was a bigwig at a different studio. And this dude proved it multiple times. So he wasn't just some, like, guy. He lived in my building. And I knew all the people. And he told us Kathleen Kennedy stories. And because he was aware of what we did on the internet. And he would watch the videos and be like, yeah, I can't believe what they've done to Star Wars and this and that. And then he would always like fill it in a little more with what he knew of the situation. And like all I've ever heard is Frank Marshall is like a doll with the same assistant, and Kathleen Kennedy's gone through dozens of assistants and certain things like that. So I would never want to work for
those stories as well. I am still suspicious. I still suspect that Kathleen Kennedy is actually not the head of Lucasfilm. It's her twin sister. And Kathy is actually just kind of vacationing somewhere while her sister is trying to pose as her in a Prince and a Pauper type of situation.
It worked for Linda Hamilton with Terminator, so hey, we'll give the Kennedy twins a shot.
That's right.
I should never say Kennedy and shot in the same sentence. Let me reverse that. Chuck E. Cheese, to your question though, the Shuri copters definitely have more dust. I got a case of them back here that I bought last week. I showed them on the podcast, but
I saw that.
I opened it up. Man, I have never been more underwhelmed than a toy. Like, I felt like Ralphie in A Christmas Story. A crummy commercial? Son of a bitch. Like, it is really that crappy of a toy. It doesn't even have, you know, the little rubber or the twist ties that have the wire inside?
Yeah.
Those are it's just paper. Like, it's just tied with paper. It comes from Hasbro's
wire or plastic.
No. This comes from
that's
the
rough.
era of Hasbro's plastic-free initiative, which lasted all of about, I don't know, 6 weeks, and they don't make shit. That's a lot of the Marvel stuff at Ollie's is that. It's based on characters people don't like. It's stuff that people don't want, and it's also a failure of Hasbro's overproduction of their cardboard or their plasticless packaging. It all failed. And folks, I got asked about some Ollie's videos. I will be returning back out to the stores fairly soon. I'm going to make a big announcement on Thursday about something. Then next week I'm out of town for the con, which is the Lexington
big announcement.
Toy Show. I know, right?
NDA.
Well, you know.
I know.
So since you already said NDA, it means you won't disclose it. So I'll tell you
I
off
will
air
not.
script.
I will not.
Oh, of course
I am the walls of Jericho.
Yeah, but the walls of Jericho came down.
Yeah, but y'all don't have horns, and you're not God's chosen people, so piss off.
Yeah, but
I'm
The Rock
Jewish.
beat
What
Chris
the heck are you
Jericho
talking
many
about?
times.
Oh, are you like legitimate question? Are you really?
Yeah, I am Jewish.
I had no idea. Well, that's cool.
It is cool. I mean,
He mentioned it on the show before.
yeah.
Did he really?
Yes,
I guess. Okay, so I
He's
guess
mentioned
my
about like
memory.
Jewish kid.
I just
I
don't
guess
talk
my
about the
memory is
Goyim.
just that crap sometimes because I didn't remember that bit. But okay, fine. You know what? Just ruin my analogy completely.
It's all right, man. I don't take that chosen stuff seriously because I like everybody. So
Fair enough.
Runs with Phantom says, guys, Pulp Wars, Windu, 2517, and Han uses a lightsaber to save Boba Fett from getting graped by Weequay after they get caught fighting in their shop. What?
Nah, I'm
Is
good.
Is
I'm
this
good.
like some fan fiction that I'm gonna have to look up online and read late at night and regret?
yeah, probably.
After St. Patty's Day, when I'm back in party mode, maybe I'll have a drink or two and watch this and read this and see what is up. But nothing will be as bad as we read a Star Wars sex parody in an episode of the show before episode 100. So if you want to go back, it's got like a burlesque. Yeah, it's we read My Immortal. We had so much fun with it. We laughed so hard we had headaches. But there is a Star Wars porn story we read on the show once as a joke, and you guys should go back and check it out. I'm sure Clone Geek knows the episode and the hour time code. So Clone Geek. By the way, Clone Geek, if you ever want to help us out and be our timestamp guy or somebody out there in the chat, I will reward you with some WCBS merch beyond just a thank you or a membership or something. We could use somebody that would help us with the time codes on any podcast. This works for both. If one person wants to do one show and the other do another, the same offer goes to both of you. But I'll hook you guys up with like a shirt or two, some books and some stuff. We just need
Hell
that.
yeah.
That's
I would
pretty
really
cool,
appreciate that.
Guys,
Yeah. Especially
take
if they have to
advantage
listen
of
to
that.
you guys reading My Immortal, because I've actually seen the fan films of My Immortal that are on YouTube, and they're made terribly because they know it's a terrible thing. They don't like it. But my God,
The part where like Dumbledore is filming him trying to have sex with a video camera, like that's the part that kills me every time. Like I don't know Harry Potter like you guys do, well, like Andrew does, but I know that Voldemort's name shouldn't change every time it's spelled, but he's Vlodimort. You name it.
there's
No.
Enobi and Ebony that changes.
Yeah.
You don't know which one it is.
But it's always
That gives me
Dementia
pain.
Raven Way because
Yeah.
she loves My Chemical Romance. Like we have to know. Runs with Phantoms. Thank you for everything. Good to see you in the chat. Nick from Echo Base Network. Somebody else I'm happy to see in the chat
Hey,
says
Nick.
KK is out. I think it's real this time. LOL. I really do too.
Listen, I have my doubts, but if you do think it's real, I've got a Nubian hyperdrive to sell you.
All right. Now, do you take Republic credits or do you only take Dactarians? Because, I mean, I know a guy. I got my chance cube.
are no good out here. I need something more real.
I'll take
I'll
what's
throw this chance cube out. I do love how Qui-Gon is like low key the most pimp Jedi. Like
Right?
in my head canon, he banged Anakin's mom before they left the planet.
Damn.
He may not have been a drinker. You say what?
I said he hits me.
In a different way. He used
yeah.
force.
I'll say this. I'm cautiously optimistic that she is actually stepping down. I don't think she got fired. I think
No.
if we're saying she got fired, that's being way too optimistic and giving them way too much credit.
Who the hell gets fired in February only to announce that they're going to leave at the end of the year?
Right.
What business
That's-
is
Justin
that?
Trudeau.
Well,
That's not a business. That's the Canadian government, which,
It's a resignation then proroguing Parliament. In this case here, I think it's Kathleen Kennedy essentially announcing her intention to retire for October.
right. If anything, that's probably closer to the truth. However, I am not going to consider celebrating until she's actually gone. And even then, we've talked about this already tonight. Like, nothing's going to change. At
No.
least not for a couple or a few years. And even then, how many people that were Star Wars fans up to this point are even going to care? Like they could turn it around. And sure, it is entirely possible that 2-3 years down the line, let's say perfect world, whoever takes over after KK's gone, actually starts to put in the work to right the ship. I don't think that's actually what's going to happen. However, let's just pretend, okay? Let's all get really high and pretend that's what's happening. How many people really care anymore? Most people don't. I'm the type of person that I prefer to enjoy things. I would prefer to look at something and be like, oh, look at this. Star Wars is actually putting out quality Star Wars content again. I want to reward them for that. I want to actually support the good things. I want to put my money where my mouth is. If Star Wars content is good, I want to support that. That's why I bought and own Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor on every available platform that I have, right? However, the vast majority of Star Wars fans aren't going to do that at this point. And I can't blame them. I can't blame them. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to shoot somebody in the foot for a decade and then ask them why they're worried and why they look like they're going to stub their toe every single time you look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what am I going to do? Be mad? I can't be mad at people for that.
No.
I can make my own personal choice and be like, okay, if a project looks genuinely good to me, I'll give it the once over. And if it's actually good, I'll continue to support it like I have with the Respawn Jedi series of games. I love those games genuinely. However, outside of that, like, people don't have anything to really be excited about for Star Wars. And there's nothing, here's the thing. And this is going to remain this way, assuming that KK is gone at the end of this year. At best, if they announce something that sounds remote, whoever her successor is, if they announce something that sounds remotely interesting and hopeful, it's still going to be a couple of years or 3 years before we actually see that actualized.
Yep.
I don't want to be so negative, but I don't think there's any future. This isn't a sports team that can like get a new coach and a new quarterback and really try hard and really like get the fans back and believe in them. This is an emotional thing that's tied to people's childhoods, and you can't undo it. Like, there's no world where a company goes, hey, we're really sorry, we messed up all your favorite characters, let's do it again. Because Carrie Fisher's dead, and Harrison Ford won't come back for any amount of money. And Mark Hamill,
he's not interested. He wanted Han to die decades ago.
Mark Hamill's pants are going to fall off on set every day, so they're not going to do fucking force underwear. But all joking aside, like,
he's not Mormon.
He's not Mormon, but it hurt a lot of people. And it's going to take way more, like even in the chat, you know, by the end of this, we'll have a couple thousand watching in the replays. None of those people are going to all of a sudden go, they fixed it in one movie. And you're right.
Yeah. Let's all go back and support Star Wars. Like, that's not happening.
No, because everybody knows how people feel about you. It's not like Lucasfilm made a couple bad movies and we're just like, It's just like,
no, they berated people who dared to criticize their movies
when
their movies were bad. Exactly. Like,
I would be a nut bar if I go out and buy
You've got so much goodwill. Like, you're gonna have to just eat crap for a long time before you start to actually earn goodwill back from the fans, if you ever manage to.
I think because of the age of Star Wars, the audience isn't going to forgive. It's like past the point of that. It's been a decade of, and I'm not trying to mean I'm in the age group too, but like we're all older. Right. Yeah, I really do. Right. Like, I'm not making a million videos where I'm going to scream into my webcam about this shit, but I don't think there's a future for any of this. And I'm going by on what they've done, human interaction, human emotion, how people act. And also too, like Script said, there's a dormant period for everything, but I think this time the dormant period is indefinite because there's no desire from a guy to be like, I got to tell my story. I got to finish it. This isn't Cody Rhodes got to finish his story. This is like if The Rock came out. No, this is like if Ric Flair came out of retirement and was like, I need to win number 18. And you're just like, come on, Rick, you're too old. Hang it up. Like, that's what
Get out of here, like Ric Flair.
Star Wars is going the way of Buck Rogers. Because Buck Rogers is a dormant franchise, and it's been dormant since the early 80s because it only had a shortly lived series, which is pretty fun. But that was the last kind of hey, hurrah. So that's 40 years. And don't get me wrong, the people who own the rights to Buck Rogers have been trying to get another movie going for a while, and another series as well. And you know, same is true for Flash Gordon. Same is also true from John Carter of Mars. Disney was about to launch that franchise, and then it wasn't doing so well, and they abandoned it in order to buy Star Wars, which has ruined both those franchises, frankly. Right now, it's going to that dormant period, and somewhere down the line, it will be resurrected, hopefully within our lifetimes, and hopefully be resurrected with such vigor and ingenuity that people will actually care about the series again. But we're also entering an era where we don't know what film and television and how we engage with our stories is going to be, because you have the advancement of AI, and you have people liking it because it's the shiny new thing, like the 3D glasses in the movie theater. And it's going to take some time for people to realize what it actually is, which is a false prophet of sorts. It looks like it acts like a human. It listens like a human, but nothing about it is human. And because of that, it will only ever be a facsimile, and it will never have the soul that a person who actually generally loves what they do puts into their work for others to actually pick up on and register. Don't get me wrong. It will be as convincing as possible, like 99.999% convincing. And there's probably going to be a sizable people out there that will be completely enamored with it. But I don't think it's going to stand the test of time for the rest of humanity in the form that it's being pursued in at this point. I think we're going to have a dark age of storytelling and education for a period until people say, no, we want to invest in ourselves again, and we want to share ourselves with other people, and we're not going to do so with the assistance of a complex binary system of algorithms within a supercomputer of servers in the middle of Central America, essentially, because that's where the rent's going to be cheap to build and operate those databases.
Middle America, the technology hub of the world. I can't wait. That's part of the reason why I feel the way I feel with my take about it never coming back is we're living through a time of change. And it's not just like the political landscape. I do believe people have changed post-pandemic and changed on a deeper level. And habits, consumption, it's beyond just, what's inflation or what's expensive. I do think people have gone back to a comfort zone where they do, and we have numbers to back this part up, but like they'll go back and watch old shows, they'll go back and watch old movies, they'll go back and consume all this stuff. But I do think, and a lot of that too is old stuff that doesn't have a modern surrogate or a modern equivalent, So for now, like there's no second Goonies, there's no more Back to the Future movies, there's none of these more stories where it kind of continues on, because a lot of these movies live in your memory where it's like, and and Doc flies off in his train, Marty and Jennifer get married, George and Lorraine are fixed, and Dave and Linda are no longer assholes, and Biff's a bitch. Like, that's the reality, and we all kind of live in happily ever after mode with these movies. Same with the Goonies. They saved the Goondocks. We don't know what happened. That's where a lot of the magic comes from. We kind of got the day after with Star Wars. Like, oh man, it's this big epic party. Now we got to clean it up, and nobody likes the cleanup part. That's what it is. You're deadbeats, and you're old, and you're this, and you're that, and that will always, for the original people, that will always stick with them. And I don't know about you guys, but when I watch some of these movies and I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. Yeah, but this guy dies. That's not even the death thing. It's just like, yeah, but this journey's all for naught. It's like with James Bond. Oh man, he's finally Bond at the end of Casino Royale. Yeah, but he's gonna stay cucked over this girl and then die. Like, it's such a lame ending that I can't go back and watch those because I always am reminded how it ends. And I think that's Star Wars to a T. Our friend Swift -1 says, KK was mad the MCU kept releasing films and she couldn't.
I don't really think that's the case.
I don't know about that, but I could see some jealousy with regards to the success and accolades.
Oh, dude.
The MCU certainly had longer legs.
Look at this, though. She's riding high in 2016, coming off The Force Awakens. Oh, we broke every record. Okay, lady, you spent record, but, whatever. You broke those records, quote unquote. But, like, she gets to hold on to that for just 2 years. And then Infinity War comes out and beats all those movies. And then Endgame comes out and beats that movie. And like even Captain Marvel's dumbass beats Solo, a Star Wars story. I can't believe I just used Captain Marvel as a comparative metric for success. It's too late right now, okay?
That's a referendum on KK, is what that is.
Yeah. Thank you, though, Swift -1. I appreciate the message and everything you do as a mod. Runs with Phantoms is back again and says, but what about Ryan Johnson's trilogy? Rest in peace. Rest in poop. That's what I say.
It's dead,
His
Jim.
trilogy is the glass onion stuff. That's his trilogy.
Wouldn't that be great if that's at the end of it? They're like, that's the trilogy Lucasfilm gave me was a deal at Netflix.
Yeah.
And we spent all this time. Oh man, we were so worried that Ryan Johnson's going to come down and poop on Star Wars again, and he was never going to do it, folks. It was just a way to keep it talking. Thank you, though, Runs with Phantoms. I'm glad we're spared that abomination, but man, would it not be funny to go watch in theaters? TLJ Screwjob, thank you very much for this. You guys have something that was so hyped up, and when you were experiencing it, it was just okay, i.e. Lord of the Rings for Jeff. For me, it was Fallout New Vegas. Now, I would like to clarify is, I was built up Lord of the Rings being the greatest thing ever. Like, people were sending me box sets. Somebody hosted me at their home and had a whole party where they cooked and they presented like Lord of the Rings factoids and all this extra stuff. And it was great.
That's
it was
freaking cool as hell.
Awesome.
I'm jealous.
Look, Michael's a great dude. But it was like all I heard is like how great everything was. And I was on board with Fellowship. That was awesome. I was on board with The Two Towers. That was really good. I didn't really like Return of the King. That's the one that kind of soured me on the whole trilogy. And it's so long. And it's
a very long movie, especially the extended edition.
That's what I had to watch.
It's a very long movie. I mean, all three of those extended editions are very long movies.
We watched them all in a day.
Nice. I mean, I can understand as somebody who is like, that's not their deal, how that could be painful. Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's
It wasn't even that it was painful.
I
I just
my
wish
deal.
the people around me just wouldn't shut up about how great it was as we're watching it. I'm like, hey, can I hear the line of dialogue about the guy and the sword so I at least have context? Like, they're like, oh my God, did you see that scene? Like, I get it.
Okay, that would be obnoxious if people are all like talking and everything like that.
I might be bad when you watch Star Wars. I might be like, you applaud the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away. And then that's it. Or I might quote the movie or say something with it. Not like, I'm not going to show you I'm not going to sit somebody down to show them Spider-Man 2 for the first time and then all of a sudden cut in and say, now this scene is important because John Romita Sr. drew this in Spider-Man number 50. They don't give a fuck. Like, I didn't care that Peter Jackson hired people to, like, rented horses or, like, put wired fruit on a tree. Like, let me watch the movie. Then I'll understand the beauty of it. That's why it didn't live up to it, because I never got to see it in a vacuum of let me watch this movie. Nothing can live up to the hype when you have people literally breathing down your neck. Isn't this the best thing you've ever seen?
That would be obnoxious as hell, and I would probably slap those people.
Well, I didn't because they were friends, but
I would probably slap my friends harder personally. But that's just thinking back to high school, Andrew.
I'm glad you've changed.
That's understandable. That could be frustrating. There's a difference between, like, saying a line in tandem maybe once in a blue moon over the course of a 3 or 4 hour film, and then like interjecting and talking over important lines when somebody has not actually seen this thing yet. Like, let them watch it, let them experience it, and let them come to their own determination whether or not they actually like it. Like, if you are cutting off important lines of dialogue by interjecting your own crap, you are reducing the likelihood of this person whom you are showing the film of them actually enjoying the film. You're not doing yourself or them any favors. Stop it. Shut up. Just be quiet.
I wish you would have been there for my first viewing of Lord of the Rings.
I would have told your friends to shut up.
Huh?
I wouldn't have hit them, but I would have told them, hey, shut up. Let them watch the movie.
You want to go back in time 5 years with me and
Yeah,
help me
absolutely.
see Lord of the Rings again for the first time?
Dude, I'm a Tolkien guy. Like, absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. That's my jam. That's my stuff. Now, if I'm watching something with friends whom I know we have all seen a movie multiple times before, then that's a different story, right? Like, you're having fun back and forth commentary. I do this with Mary all the time when we're watching movies, like having commentary, talking about different scenes and things like that. Maybe we pause, maybe we don't. It doesn't actually matter because we've both already seen it. We've been able to experience it organically without interruption prior. That's not the same thing.
You two need to watch the My Immortal YouTube series.
I'm watching it with the. I'll watch it with the guys. We're renting a cabin.
That's an Evanescence song.
That's why it's called My Immortal. Ugh.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's all about music and shit. Like,
oh, okay.
it's emo. It's like an emo girl going to Hogwarts, but she's an American emo girl who's very dumb. And I know she's American because all of her cultural references are clearly American in the way she talks. Like, it's clearly written by an American. But,
okay.
You know, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Anything else that was overhyped for you guys that couldn't live up to it?
Spider-Man No Way Home.
The
only thing redeemable about that movie was when Toby and Andrew were on screen.
The Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises. Even though I enjoyed the Dark Knight, I was expecting more out of it.
Dark Knight Rises, definitely.
Dark Knight Rises. Well, I knew no one was phoning it in for that. Superman Returns.
Ooh.
Only and it hurts even more so because I know people that worked on that movie and in important positions, and they have all said many times that if they had delayed production by 6 months, they probably would have run into me because I'd started at Paramount in 06 and they were filming in 06 or filming in 05, 06. And they probably would have had me come in and rewrite the script.
You could have saved the first Superman movie of my lifetime, and it could have been an enjoyable experience.
It most definitely would have been, because this is the problem, and it's not necessarily 100% the problem, but it was just that you had Bryan Singer and the two writers crafting a story in honor of the Richard Donner films, but there's and this is not universal, but when you have three openly gay men working on a narrative about a Superman character who is in love with a woman, you need someone that knows what it's like to be in love with a woman to kind of write that, to kind of get in there. And there are some, well, it's not some, there are many homosexual writers that know how to do that. Unfortunately, those three men working together were not well equipped, which is why the dichotomy between Superman and Superman Returns and Lois, and of course the Richard character, just did not feel like it had any chemistry to it, despite the fact that all the actors in there have proven that they can have chemistry with the characters of the opposite sex and opposite that they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because it's a brilliant cast, beautiful set design, great special effects. It had all the right players in place, but the narrative was a little off, and the plotting was not in the right motion. And then on top of that, the kid that they got, cute kid, but he barely says anything, and he's supposed to be 5 years old, but he acts like he's 3.5. Like, I've never known a 5-year-old to be that quiet. Mm-hmm. Even if they're shy, when they're around their mom, they're usually kind of a bit more, active,
animated.
Yes. So yeah.
Well, man, next time I watch Superman Returns, which will never be watched again in my lifetime,
just watch the documentary.
Yeah,
it's a great documentary, way better than the movie.
My only complaint really with that movie existing is when I watch it or anything about it, I feel like the producers and everybody have like broken their back to pat themselves on it, because it's like, it feels like they're so proud of what they've made, and I don't think it deserves much, if any, praise. Like Superman Returns, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, Superman Returns. I don't like Superman Returns at all.
Ooh.
I don't think I can ever. I don't think
I
I
don't
can
know
ever
if I
watch
go
it.
Putting it
that
before
far.
both Man of Steel is hard for me to reconcile, but I get you.
I would
Because-
still put it before the Snyder shit.
Because
But
I will tell you this,
yeah.
that one image inside the plane with Superman flying by the window is magical, and it's beautifully shot, and it actually conveys
and
so
it's
much.
Superman.
And it conveys so much. I will say this: the other part too, him doing the multiple saves in Metropolis, great set. Now these are all just set pieces. This is not so much on like narrative storytelling in the sense that you need it to be. They're just really good set pieces that kind of convey a lot of like, oh my God, you're on a plane, you are going to die. You look out the window, and all of a sudden you see a blue blur with a red cape, and you know everything's going to be okay. Like you just
But
know
that's
it.
exactly
Like, that isn't,
what's
you
supposed to
get
happen. With
no feeling like that in anything that Zack Snyder has ever made.
Agreed.
And then
I
when
also-
Zack Snyder is not capable of doing that.
right. But the fact of the matter is that unfortunately, that little bit of the shot and what happened later with the saving of the plane, everything else about Superman evaporated, and there's nothing more of it left in the movie. Sadly, like
Dude,
that,
when
that's it.
Yeah, that's true. That is accurate.
When he's on that island of kryptonite crying and getting stabbed by Kumar from Harold and Kumar, like
That's Frank Miller, dude. That is so. Frank Miller treats Superman like a cuck to the United States all the time. Like if the president asks him to do something, he'll do it without question. If Superman doesn't have his powers, he's like this feeble weakling all the time, which is not true to him. But
I kind of liked in Superman 2 when he tried to fight that guy again, even though he didn't have powers. He got his ass beat, but
he got his
Clark
ass beat
tried.
because he's sensing stuff for the first time, but he got back up again. And the other part too is after he was kind of left alone, he still got back up, went to the counter. He's like, "Oh crap, Zod's here. Well, I got to get back." So which means he has to go across, because I think he was still in Canada at that time. Like I think that guy he beat up was a Canadian trucker. But
deserved it.
yeah, like the dude does deserve it. I mean, the ending after he gets his powers back and he lets the guy attack him and then he just throws him into a pinball machine seems a bit excessive. But regardless of the fact, as Clark Kent, he went through the Canadian tundra back to his Fortress of Solitude, which that takes balls to do. Like I've traveled pretty damn far north in Canada, and even I get to the part where it's like it's minus 50 below, and it's really tough to get through that weather. It's really, really tough. Like no matter how well bundled up you are, it's really tough. Your eyelashes freeze. Like it's
Ooh.
just yeah. So when you see him doing that, knowing where he's going, you're like, dang, yeah, he may have got his butt kicked by that guy, but he pushed through that level of weather in that region to get back to his fortress to find a way to restore his powers because he knew how important it was for him to defend Earth from Zod. And you need that consistency through. And with Superman Returns, you've got that airplane save, you got the quick saves in Metropolis. The heat vision disintegrating the glass back into sand, brilliant thing. Because it works and it feels it, and then catching the globe from the Daily Planet and putting it down. All good stuff that are great and very representative of what the character is. But you also have to have the fact that you need a good plot and you need Superman to be active in it and you need him to be a bit more of a role model character. And you also need better stakes that aren't recycling an existing method of what Luthor did before, because his gimmick for those first two films was land for real estate and rent and to be a landlord. If I was doing it, I'd be like, no, he's now gotten out of the being real estate and he has now found a way to repurpose Kryptonian technology to create Luthor Corp. And now he is the corporate, Jeff Bezos type that controls all technology in Metropolis and throughout the world. And he's incredibly powerful. And he's trying to be not the criminal mastermind. He's trying to be the savvy businessman. But everything that happens changes as soon as Superman returns. And he just is obsessed with killing him. And he's willing to sacrifice his reputation that he's built since Superman's absence and his company and all the people that work for him just to get revenge on Superman for throwing him in jail and defeating his first get rich quick scheme type of thing from years earlier. Like that's a better motivation as opposed to Kryptonite Island.
Kryptonite Island was not my favorite.
Yeah.
Not where I'm going on vacation next year either, folks. So don't worry, I won't be streaming from there. Our friend Track Media Only says the easiest way to fix it is to make the sequels all Force visions of Luke. Anything new would have to be canon. They'll never do it. Or anything would have to be cartoon. Okay.
They're not going to holodeck it. It's not going to happen. They don't have the humility to reckon. Because the thing is, in order to do that, that has to... What's predicated on that is the acknowledgement, both internal and then external to the public, that we made something so universally reviled, so disliked, that we have to act like it never actually happened within continuity.
Highlander 2 effect.
They're not going to do that.
No,
they've invested way too much money, and it doesn't matter the fact they've lost money on that investment. It's not happening. They do not have the humility. Not the people that are currently there. It's not going to happen.
No.
That is like, to call that a pipe dream is being way too generous. That's not going to happen.
Well, folks, what will likely happen is AI will get really powerful, and you can make your own Star Wars trilogy on your computer. And that'll be the future one day.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but there you go. Then everybody can get their own version. I do think that there will be, in our lifetime, there will be like a choose your own adventure type of movie where you fill out a prompt and the movie will know based on what you put in your prompt, what you actually want to see. I wouldn't be surprised if down the road there's like a Marvel movie that has like 5 different versions and it's like, oh, I don't like this one because I like yellow pants or some dumb shit like that. But like they know you. Like, believe me, technology companies, everybody knows you better than you think. I'm sure these studios have access to that data too. They just got to pay for it. So
yeah.
I don't want to live in these worlds. I foresee them happening.
Have a Wonder Woman movie with Haley Atwell as the lead instead of Gal Gadot, because I like boobs and ass.
Hey, British women playing anything are good in my eyes. So
Haley Atwell's good in my
she is, and she'll be in the next Mission Impossible. TLJ Screwjob, thank you for both of these. What were you saying? You excited?
Yeah, she's in the last Mission Impossible film, along with Vanessa Kirby.
Is she confirmed? She died in the last one, didn't she?
No, she didn't.
No,
she's on the train.
Yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson's character died. No, Rebecca.
Oh,
Ferguson
no, you're right. Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know why I
Ferguson,
confused the two. Yeah, it was Rebecca Ferguson that got killed.
They're both good actors.
Pissed me off.
Yeah.
Which did piss me off because I really liked her character. She was a badass spy. Yeah, no, you're correct. You are absolutely correct. I don't know why I blanked on that for a second. Yep,
it happened.
No, you're right.
Hey,
you are right.
It's
almost 12, so
Yeah. It's 12:30 here. TLJ Screwjob, though, thank you for both of these. The most important thing is to respect these characters and make sure they continue to live on in a way that you envisioned. Is it worse that she knew she was lying or that she had just messed up bad?
No, she knew she was full of shit.
That's tough because the fact of the matter is that in most cases, they think what they're doing is the best for the franchise, and that's where you have like incompetence and malice. Like, you would have to be pretty arrogant, and don't get me wrong, the possibility is there, pretty arrogant to want to take this position, actively take efforts to destroy it, knowing that everyone around you who invested so much in that property is now never going to make any money, just to walk away a decade later with a big smile on your face. I don't think you'd ever meet someone in Hollywood that'd be willing to do that, knowing that the reputation you leave with would be tarnished forever, because reputation is more powerful than money in Hollywood. And you always want to leave on your best foot. And at this point here, I think she thought everything she was doing was in line with where she thought the world was headed, and she got a reality check, and now she is playing her card right now, her exit card, which is, okay, give me all the of the awards for my career,
Golden
because
parachute.
I have a number of successes that I have earned, and let's see if we can use those awards and successes to dampen this last decade of objective failure, really. And hopefully she'll be remembered more so for the problem solving skills that she did with Amblin, with Marshall Frank, her husband's company, and with a couple of other studios, and less for her Star Wars participation.
As long as you don't get credit for Back to the Future, Kathleen Kennedy, I'll be happy.
Marshall did more on that than her. I mean, I know that part because even Spielberg did more for Back to the Future than Kathy did. She was just the background problem solver, which is all you'd really need. She had nothing to do with replacing Holt with Michael J. Fox. If anything, she was able to budget for the reshoots for that to make it work.
Yeah, that movie is arguably spotless. I'd have to really think about issues with the first Back to the Future in terms of, it's not just like preference. There are certain things that you can't overlook in a movie, but Back to the Future doesn't really have any of those problems. Yeah. Then again, it's probably because they shot it twice, which most movies don't do. But at least 6 weeks of it, put it like that.
Yeah, because 70% of the movie was shot already with Holt, and they were able to integrate Michael J. Fox into it with reversals and stuff and made it work. But they did bring all the actors back so that he could be playing off their performance as opposed to a script reader or supervisor.
Also too, both Martys were completely different costumes.
Yes.
So like everyone that's like, oh, there's that shot in Back to the Future where he dives into the car, it's Eric Stoltz. No, because Eric Stoltz wears green and black shoes. But there is a shot of him in the diner when he punches Biff. Thomas Wilson has said, like, we didn't shoot that twice. So there's that like close up of him going, hey Biff, what's that? And he punches him in Lou's Cafe. Mm-hmm. There's your Eric Stoltz appearance in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So God, I can't believe I remember this shit. Anyway, TLJ Screwjob, thank you. I would just like to add, I do think it was never meant to be this bad. It just was this bad because it's very, I mean, come on, like put yourself back in the mindset of the Force Awakens release. And I usually post my social media posts to prove this because I don't want to go like, ha, I told you so, but fell into the trap myself. But I could see what they were going with during that. And like every other, like, they were copying other entertainment properties and trying to cash in on it a certain way, and it worked back then, but it didn't work more than once because Star Wars fans are a little smarter than your average pop culture consumer. That's why you're also world class. But TLJ Screwjob, thank you again. In regards to enjoying the original prequel trilogy, forgetting Disney Star Wars exists, I cannot. I wish that I could just wish away my feelings, quote, intended, but I watched A New Hope for my birthday before Kenobi, and I just thought it was okay. Guys, I know TLJ Screwjob's anecdotal here, but this is what I'm talking about, how people in the future, like, it could be 30 years from now, people are like, oh, Star Wars, you'll get new people thinking it's new and exciting, but like, this window has closed. It's been nailed shut. Mm-hmm. So I get where you're coming from, TLJ Screwjob. I couldn't watch Star Wars for 6 months after The Force Awakens. I thought, this was terrible. Why do I have these posters on my walls? Like, that's why I made Stealing Solo, because I was legitimately bummed out. I was like, and the thing is, more than anything with the movie, I was bothered by how did other people fall for this shit? For 2 years, I would like get into these arguments and, like, honestly, seriously, I got into a comic book store argument. Guys like, oh, how did you not like episode 7? It's the best one since Empire, blah, blah, blah. I was like, first off, Empire isn't even the best one. And then he didn't want to hear that shit. And then we got into this thing. And then he wanted to throw up all these facts at me. I'm like, bro, that's factually incorrect. I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. So, like, that's why I'm really getting tired of nostalgia, because like people accept trash because it makes you feel good, but stop going backwards, demand more, and you'll still feel good because you'll get better shit.
I can understand. I mean, I can understand the attitude and the sentiment of like, after experiencing something that's just so awful, it like, leaving that bad taste in your mouth for a little bit. But I don't and that this is a completely subjective thing, right? This is going to differ from person to person. It's not to invalidate TLJ Screwjob's experience on that, but like I don't give these people that power. Like I can still rewatch the first 6 films over and over. Well, okay, so Attack of the Clones, maybe not as
Thank
much,
you.
but you know, I can watch the rest of them, you know, over and over and absolutely love them. I can rewatch, you know, the first 2 phases, first 3 phases, even at least most of the films of the MCU, and still have a fantastic time. Like, knowing that what came after was absolute trash does not invalidate my enjoyment of what came before. I don't give them that power. I can still enjoy those things. Modern Spider-Man comics, Amazing Spider-Man, is absolute dog water. It's horrible. It's been bad for like 3 or 4 different runs, if not longer. Like extremely bad. Like I'm talking like post slot. So even after him, like it's been really bad. However, that doesn't invalidate my enjoyment of an ability to go back and still read Spider-Man comics that came prior to that.
Same.
Like I still love this stuff. I love the properties. I love the IPs. I love the characters, regardless of the talentless garbage crap that's coming out now. I can still go back and be like, all right, well, whatever they're doing right now sucks ass. I'm going to go back and reread what didn't.
Yeah. And that's
all the time.
what you should be doing. And to Jeff, to your point, I can relate greatly because I went on a date with a girl in January 2016 after Force Awakens came out. I hadn't seen it yet because I hate J.J. Abrams. And she just was all about how great it was. And I'm just like, there's no way J.J. Abrams made a really good movie. I just don't believe it. And obviously I never continued dating her after that. But then eventually I saw a screener of it and I watched this. I'm like, wow, this is a guy who thinks he saw the original Star Wars movie and thinks that he's copying it and is doing a really terrible job at it at every point, to the point where he literally took Luke Skywalker, broke him into 3 characters and named them Rey, Poe, and Finn. and neither one of them do anything of significant value except for Poe destroying the Star Killer base. And it's like, no, the whole journey is the fact that Luke is the character we've been following is the one that pulls off the victory that you wouldn't expect. And now you completely robbed the other 2 characters of any agency in doing that at all. And then I remember vividly hearing Mark Hamill, this is before he was broken, but he talks about how he was reading the script and he's waiting for his entrance. And then on this one page, he sees the lightsabers yanked out of the snow and it flies around. And he turns the page and he's like, well, this is it. This is where I come in. This is where Luke Skywalker grabs that lightsaber and he defends the kids from his nephew. And it goes into Rey and he makes, a comic joke. Rey, she didn't do anything. She didn't go to Dagobah. Like he says everything every single fan said to criticize that character when he still had, hope that in the next movie he would be playing Luke Skywalker. And all I'm thinking of is like, yeah, Mark Hamill just wrote a way better intro to a climax than what we got in The Force Awakens, because if you had that lightsaber fly through the air and land in Luke Skywalker's hand on that Star Killer base, the audience would have gone nuts.
I would have
lost
probably forgiven a lot of that shit if all of a sudden Luke Skywalker appeared and cleaned house at the end. I'd be like, well this is kind of cool.
Especially if he also managed to show up and save Han.
Not only that, but
that's it. Han. That would have changed it for me.
Han. If he saved Han as well, that would have.
Or here's the better part, right?
About that movie,
he captures a lightsaber and he's there, and who's standing next to him? It's Han. And you find out that his being stabbed and then was a force projection, and you find out that Rey's manipulation of that stormtrooper was just Luke using her through the Force to get these things done. And and you just have that whole thing.
But script, you can't have a strong female character be made to look stupid in the then modern age of 2015. And that's what we have to remember, is that we have to always make Rey look good. That's the whole point of these movies. And nobody likes her.
Well, that's the thing. Is like you can't make a character look good unless you start them out as an underdog. They have to have some place to go. They can't start at the finish line.
That is true. Now, speaking of going, I'm about to go nuts because we're about to do some Steiner math thanks to our friend Adama. Folks, it's late, but I'm excited.
You know, they say all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Small Joe, and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best at beating me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down. See, the three-way at Sacrifice, you got a 33 1/3 chance of winning. But I got a 66 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me, and he's not even going to try. So, Samoa Joe, you take your 33 1/3 chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning. If we used to go one-on-one and then add 66 2/3%, I got 141 2/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. See, Joe, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you at Sacrifice.
Adama, thank you
Legend.
so much for your Scott Steiner size $50 super chat. We appreciate that here on the channel. Folks, he says, good evening, fellas. For me, Kathleen Kennedy will go down in history as the woman who destroyed Star Wars by trying to turn it into a girl boss film franchise. Ideology trumped story, and that's where it all failed. They should have adapted Timothy Zahn. Let's see where the message is at the regular ones.
I think it's probably still coming.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
thank you,
my,
Adama. We're going to read that in just a second.
Well, I'll put this to you out there. So Kathleen Kennedy turning Star Wars into a girl brand, that's not her idea. That is actually Disney's method. Disney has the Disney princess for a reason and not the Disney prince. They market to girls. That's all they know how to do. When I was starting out in Hollywood and I'd meet friends who were getting into marketing and going to work for Disney, they were telling me straight up, yeah, it's a girls' company. All we do is sell to girls. Everything we market is to girls. And I said jokingly, oh, I guess that's why they screwed up with Power Rangers so much. And that ended up being true. So when you hear that Disney bought Marvel and you hear that Disney bought Lucasfilm, you're like, oh my God, they're going to turn these into girl brands.
Yeah.
It was a miracle that Marvel lasted as long as it did before it became very heavy on the female characters. As we saw with the Captain Marvel, the Marvels, Shuri with Black Panther, Wanda in Multiverse of Madness, introduction of Ironheart, Echo, what else? Kate Bishop, and so forth. Like, there's more than one reason why they did that. The main reason was they sell to girls because they know how to sell to girls, and even with a boy brand, they failed doing that. And the second part is they don't have to pay the creators for those derivatives of the characters because those rights are still within Disney and Marvel's ownership, where they don't have to pay out to the original creative team and their estate.
So is that what the deal with Miles Morales Spider-Man is? Is that
100%?
Or is that diversity? Okay.
Like, no, it was how many birds with one stone can we kill in this area? So you've got, okay, we have Miles Morales playing as Spider-Man, so we don't have to do the Ditko state with regards to Peter Parker. We also are able to give us those diversity, points as well. And then on top of that, because, Barack Obama was the president, they already had Sam Wilson kind of entertain Captain America. They figured, yep, okay, now we're hitting into this new generation of characters. And then on top of that, the merchandising aspect that they thought they would have had, but didn't pay off, which is, we can now sell 2 Spider-Man products where we keep majority of the Miles Morales stuff, but we can pair it up with the original Peter Parker stuff to try and get both those sales captured. And it didn't work at all.
No. I have a very strong distaste for that character, but that's a topic for another time.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Bob Orsi died. Oh shit.
Roberto Orsi died?
That's what I'm seeing in the chat.
Oh, he was the only good Star Trek writer in the him and Kurtzman stuffs.
I knew the name right away. I was like, oh no, let's see what they said about him. How old was he? He wasn't very old, was he?
Oh, he should be in his early 50s.
Yep, he's dead. Oh shit! I'm not trying to sound so harsh. He died 8 minutes ago, or sorry, they reported it 2 hours ago. He was 51 years old.
Wow,
Let's
that's young.
see. I know.
Kidney disease, apparently. Thanks, Clomby.
Oh,
That's
no.
damn.
Look at R.I.P. to this guy. He's had a hell of a tenure, though. He worked on a lot of big movies: Spider-Man, Ender's Game, Mission Impossible, Hawaii Five-0, the reboot. Yeah, Transformers. Like, R.I.P. to him, man. Like, that's young. I don't care what you made. That's sad.
Well,
let's
the
put
thing
him up
is,
on the
he
screen
was
for a
the
second.
better writer between him and Kurtzman as a pair, and then he was shoved out after Star Trek Into Darkness, and I haven't heard much about him afterwards. And I guess he'd possibly been fighting this for a while. Then that's tragic because he had talent, and Kurtzman didn't, and still doesn't. And it's hard to believe in God when you have this guy die of kidney disease, and Alex Kurtzman is still putting on terrible Star Trek shows for millions of dollars.
Oh no!
Jeez.
Is he the bald one?
Alex Kurtzman?
Yeah,
no, that's
bald?
the Goldsman.
Okay.
Alex Kurtzman's got the white hair and horn-rimmed glasses and the face that you want to punch many times.
R.I.P. to him. Now, Adama, I've been looking at the messages for your regular message, so I'm just was trying to see what he said next. But while we wait, I'm going to go back and read. Let's see, TLJ Screwjobs. We read TLJ Screwjobs. MPause, what is up? Says, as far as Kathleen Kennedy goes, too little, too late. I agree. Too much damage has been done. Too old to begin the training. Sorry, that's me quoting Empire. The amount of work time it'll take to reboot everything is far too costly. Yeah. But I also don't think rebooting everything was ever in their plan. I think this is, they believe in the movie. They think it's going to make money. They like it because they think it's going to make money. And then it doesn't. And then they're just like, well, shit, let's move on to the next one. Like, I'm not making excuses for them, but I don't think they are behind the scenes hating this movie. They're like, it made all this money. That's our metric. We don't care.
No, it really is at this point. Like, again, the reputation comes from, oh, you made a lot of money and it got all this great reporting in the trade. So there you go. Your reputation points go up and you're happy. And listen, nobody, with the exception of the mob, nobody in Hollywood is intentionally trying to make a bad movie. It just happens. And it's shocking that it can just happen. But that's where, everything with regards to getting that movie from script to screen works out well. But all the execution of it, the themes behind it, the quality control involved in it was just not there, and audiences reject it. That's why you get the Adventures of Pluto Nash, which not a great Eddie Murphy movie overall, but it has actually kind of got some aspects to it. They're like, oh, I can see why they thought this was all good and what they were trying to do, because they're doing a film noir style science fiction story, and they just did not find a way to best blend those two together.
I love how you brought up Pluto Nash, and there's not a week that goes by that I don't think of how bad Pluto Nash is. Now, not because I'm angry, mainly because my friends and I, we have access to this bootleg streaming channel, which runs Eddie Murphy movies randomly, and we'll try to guess what's on, and a lot of times it's the Adventures of Pluto Nash. It's that stupid scene where his head's spinning around and they're changing the bodies. Like, I love Eddie Murphy. This motherfucker's got a shelf in my office. It's no longer just the Beverly Hills Cop shelf. There's a Prince Akeem up there from Coming to America. I like Eddie Murphy. One of the listeners, you sent me a custom mug. I got that too. And Pluto Nash.
Yep.
Like, that was terrible. Sorry. Rant over. Let's read our super chat from our friend TLJ Screwjob. Thank you, Adama, though. I appreciate the last one. TLJ Screwjob says, thing is, I know Script's right. Don't let them take your love away from Star Wars. But that love's gone. I watched A New Hope and had no desire to watch The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man. Hopefully that love will return. Time heals old wounds.
All joking aside, TLJ Screwjob, do what I did. Like, create something that'll help with that. I know this is not a plug, but stealing Solo was actually very cathartic for me because, and it still is cathartic, especially working on the new one. I get to make fun of something that I used to love that has been ruined by people that I don't think are qualified to work on it, and it's glorious. Like, I love it. It makes me laugh. Like, I don't look at Rian Johnson and get angry. I go, how am I going to draw his big round head? Like, his head's noticeably bigger than everybody else's. That's how I find the joy in these things. And then I go back and watch the originals and still like them. Might I recommend you write a story, draw a picture, do something to help you get that like satisfaction, because you will find that. I did, a lot of other people can, and creativity. And that's my my random recommendation for the week, folks. Create something. I think you'll like it. But I gotta stop there before I start sounding like Bob Ross, happy trees and all this other shit. Shogun Orta, thank you very much. And by the way, I do like Bob Ross quite a bit. I just found out that Andor comes out in 4 chunks, 3 episodes a week. Wait, what? 3 episodes a week, supposedly shorter release schedule of 12 episodes overall. What do you think this means? I think we're in a weird window where everything is changing quickly because either something big is happening or people think something big is about to happen. So they're just trying to push everything out before the world's over. What was that?
Or they're just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what works, because you have people who will, sign up for a 1-month trial of Disney Plus or something like that, and they'll binge a show that they dropped the whole thing of or whatever. Maybe they're trying to get people to stick around a little bit longer. Who knows? I don't know. I can't imagine that Andor's the show to try and make that work with, considering nobody watched the first season. I don't understand the strategy myself.
Oh, I know the strategy is they're trying to get more watch hour minutes per week for the show by having 3 episodes back to back.
Oh.
It's watch hour minute metrics. That's basically what they're doing here.
There it is.
Because they released the first 3 episodes of season 1 and they did better watch hours, and then all the subsequent episodes people just stopped tuning out. If they concentrate them this way, they're hoping to hold on to retain that audience for the entire run of the show, so that people will actually say, yes, I watched it. Because when you take a look at Skeleton Crew, Acolyte, Ahsoka, those numbers are really terrible.
Mm.
And the shows match.
Interesting.
So let's see. Did anything else pop up? Thank you, Shogun Orta. Thank you to everybody who has joined us here tonight. Folks, we've been having a good show. Join us next week. Don't miss out. Join me on Thursday as well. I had to think about when. I almost said join me today, but it's tomorrow technically. So join me tomorrow for the podcast properly at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where the guys and I will be talking about, well, all sorts of things. And don't forget that this Sunday night is our Oscar Lampoon party. Hollywood's biggest night? Well, we're here to make fun of it. This is our 6th year. We dress up, we drink, we have a good time. The guys and I will be going live at probably 7 o'clock, maybe 6. I'll give you the exact time. I'm going to make the show tomorrow, and we're going to tweet out about it. Do us a favor. Tweet out about it and help everybody find out. Adama, thank you very much again for a very generous super chat. Thank you for following up. After Zahn, they should have time jumped and adapted the Legacy of the Force books. Now it goes down in history as a great failure. It saddens me that Star Wars died that way. We should just enjoy the good stuff. It's me, Austin! Well, I will press you that button in just a moment. How do you guys feel about Adama's recommendations in terms of time jump and adapting some of those stories?
I think that if you wouldn't trust the current people in charge of Star Wars with the things that they're coming up with, why would you trust them with the things that you already like? I wouldn't trust anybody at Lucasfilm right now with any of this stuff. I already said this. I'm not a Skywalker guy. I'm not a Legacy of the Force guy. I'm not a New Jedi Order guy. I know these stories, but I don't care about the characters the same way that I do the Old Republic characters. And so I wouldn't trust them with any of them. I don't want them handling it. I don't want KK in charge of live action versions of, Legacy of the Force and adapting Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. To hell with that. No, I don't want them anywhere near it. I don't want Filoni near that. You kidding me?
You don't like Tony Filoni?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Get out of here.
I don't ever want Dave Filoni involved with anything, because it's like, hey, you like Dave Filoni? Well, watch Ahsoka. You have him to thank for some of that shit. I know he didn't make the show proper, but she's still
He made
around
enough
for a
of it.
reason.
He made enough of it.
Yeah. Here is the button that you requested, Adama.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch!
I love that button. Adama, if I could get anything adapted, unpopular opinion, I would like to see the courtship of Princess Leia made into something, because I think that would be a very weird Star Wars movie that a lot of people would like. That's how you could get more women to watch Star Wars, is if you told that story, because I do think you can sell that story to like everybody. It's like Han Solo and Princess Leia are getting married. They're both cool. I want to see that. And then you got the romance aspect. Like, you could have, man, if you would have made that movie, you could have sold that whatever, because you could sell it to men, you could sell it to women. There's a planet battle. Han Solo's got a new rival. I do think though that Star Wars works best with Darth Vader alive, and when the main villain's dead, everybody else is kind of a step down. So either way, that's what I want to see, but thankfully we'll never have to suffer through a bad adaptation. People in the chat are saying, remember how they butchered Thrawn and Ahsoka? Yeah, I didn't like how they played out Thrawn either, and I'm new to those books. All right, TLJ Screwjob has a question for you, Script. So a quick Google search says a typical Hollywood movie takes only 20 to 120 days to shoot. So what costs more, pre or post-production?
Ooh, well, so pre and post-production take more time, and sometimes that can come with a huge expense. It really comes down to how did you budget your cast? Because, these days, some actors have a quote between $5 and $25 million. And that's a lot of cheddar right there.
It's a lot of money.
And then there's other actors where you can get some great character actors for like $3,000 a day. So it really comes, I mean, it's not a boilerplate situation, TLJ Screwjob. But I mean, I'll put it to you this way. I have a couple of projects that are in pre-production right now. It's been going on for 3 years. And shooting will probably be in 40 days when we start going. And then post-production will probably be a year. So the cost of that development itself has got a hefty price tag to it. And the cost of the production will probably be on par. And post-production will probably be the cheaper for this particular part. But this is an independent film. So yeah, it's in this case, this situation, pre-production and production would be pretty much the same, and post-production would be a little cheaper. I know when it comes to like an MCU film, pre-production is almost nothing. Production itself is significant, but post-production is the huge expense, because it is all taking the previous stuff, re-rendering it out, because they're all essentially just cartoons with live action integration. And there's thousands of people working on those animations to try and make it work. But they're also taking shortcuts, which is why you can easily tell when it's CGI as opposed to it looking like it's something in camera.
Yeah, it's never lit right. It never looks right to me. But, I guess I got to deal with that.
Jurassic Park, 1993, CG still holds up to this day because they spent a massive amount of time making sure it was just right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, when they were shooting for photorealism 35 years ago, they not 35, 32. They get it. They hit it really close. Oh, man, like the new fucking Kraven the Hunter. I get it. We're not talking same amount of time, but like that's just a modern movie with CGI. Or even the new Captain America, which kind of shit the bed. That Red Hulk looks horrible, and will look horrible in the future.
Yep.
But folks, it is 1:07 a.m. and there are still a lot of people here, but it is late. So we are going to put this baby to bed. I'd like to thank Adama. I'd like to thank everybody who sent in the support for the show. I'd like to thank everybody who watched live. I'd like to thank everybody who played the word game at home, who commented, who might be watching this in the future. Folks, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. I'll be making a nice announcement on Thursday. Andrew knows I'll tell Script off air. But folks, join me. I will have a new video for you probably tomorrow. I got to take care of some Stealing Solo 2 business and get ready for the Lexington Comic and Toy Show. I'm back on the convention circuit, folks. So come hang out, get a Shuricopter, get a book, take a picture, do whatever. It's fun. We'll watch. If I have electricity at my booth, I'm going to be running Ollie's videos at the con. So come over. Maybe if I don't know, we'll find out. We'll find a way to make it work. But maybe we'll hang out. We'll do a live narration of one of those toy videos together. We'll just stand there and go, "Here we are at Ollie's," and then I want to hear what you have to say about all the Revas and shit. So come be a part of that. We'll have fun. But it is a toy show, so I expect a lot of people to know what's up. So, guys, is there anything else you would like to say? Andrew, script, anything before we go?
Nah, thank you for being here, everybody. Appreciate y'all. There were a lot of here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. Sorry I was late, gentlemen. But I will say this afternoon on my channel, I dropped an interview with an independent filmmaker who I've actually met in person named Alejandro Montoya Marin. We talk about his film career, the struggles of indie film and what it means. My good buddy Paul Chato also co-pilots with that interview. So go check that out. It's a little bit over an hour. Very insightful if you're interested in independent film and getting started and what it entails. Yeah, please go ahead and check that out and share that out with your friends. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Awesome, guys. Check it out and share it out.
Yeah, folks. After you're done here, check out Scripps channel. Check out what everybody does. Show some love. And, we'll all have a good time at 1 million subscribers, 5 million, 10 million. Fuck it. Let's take down mainstream entertainment with good quality content here on the internet. But until next time, folks, which will be on Thursday, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.
.com